On his 16th birthday, the hero began working as an adventurer. 4 years have passed since then. The gates are opening. The tall warrior turns to Kraft. He tells the shocked hero, a temporary mage, that he is expelled. The warrior wonders if Kraft is really a magician. 3 adventurers attack the hero, claiming that he is absolutely useless for his role. They are even willing to believe that his magical crest is a fake, since Kraft can only use basic magic. He only grips his staff tighter. One of the adventurers makes a conclusion regarding Kraft's profession. He says that he has no talent to be an adventurer, and the hero can only admit it. So, Kraft has been kicked out of the group again, and he wonders how many more times he will have to go through this. When Kraft appears before the secretary of the guild, he already understands what happened. The hero confirms this in tears. Then the secretary politely tells Kraft what he thinks. She is deeply convinced that Kraft is not fit to be an adventurer. It is not the first time he has been excluded from the team. Kraft tries his best to become a strong mage, but he never stays in any team for long. He has nothing to say to the secretary. His magic is too weak, and even from small monsters he constantly has to be saved. Kraft was only able to learn the basics of magic, such as creating water, but nothing more. He doesn't know what to do. Memories of endless rejections flash through his mind. Suddenly, the secretary tells him that the Builders Guild has submitted a request. This request is different from the standard ones. The hero is interested. The fact is that construction of a new village on a secret road near the border will soon begin. They need someone who can stay there long enough. The hero understands that to do this he will have to leave the Adventurers Guild. He also understands that leaving the guild will not affect anything. He does not want to accept this offer. The secretary is sure that this place will suit him, since it does not require much fighting skills. Since Kraft is a bad mage and has no talent for being an adventurer, he has no choice but to agree. He tells the secretary that he accepts the request and asks for an explanation of all the details. The secretary is surprised by such compliance and begins to formalize everything that is needed. Thus, Kraft was excluded from the Adventurers Guild. Kraft feels inspired. He thinks this will be a turning point in his life. He dreams of becoming a professional builder. He wants to try in this new business for himself. Here he is distracted by noise. Loaders rush past with a heavy bundle on their shoulders. Kraft notices that life is in full swing around him. He stood frozen in the middle of a square filled with busy people. Someone calls out to him. The man approaches, wondering what Kraft is doing here. He only dares to ask where the registrar is. The man is still angry. He asks who Kraft is trying to register as. However, upon hearing that the hero came from the Adventurers Guild, he immediately changes his attitude. The stranger hugs Kraft and thanks him for coming. He tells his colleagues that he will be away for a while and goes to see the guy off. Arriving at the Builders Guild, the stranger says that he was waiting for our hero. It turns out that this man is the guild leader. When the hero introduces himself with his full name, as Kraft Walken, the guild leader becomes even more excited, saying that it is a great name for a builder. He is delighted, and Kraft also succumbs to the fun. While filling out the paperwork for Kraft, the guild leader notices that Kraft is a mage. But Kraft assures him that he is just a talentless guy and, despite 4 years of practice, is not capable of anything. The leader doubts this. He asks the hero if he has tested his crest's abilities. It turns out he hasn't. Kraft was born in a village with increased magical power, and therefore has a coat of arms. That's all he can say. The leader suggests going to a priest who will test the coat of arms abilities. The hero does not agree, because it will cost a lot. But the leader assures that everything is under control. Kraft wonders why they are so kind to him, to which the leader replies that if they discover that he has the talent of a craftsman, it will be a great success. Kraft understands this, but he is sure that his coat of arms is not suitable for magic. He says he will think about the offer, and then the leader calls out to a man in a tall cap sitting nearby at the counter. It's a priest, a herald's servant. He politely asks if Kraft wants to test the potential of his coat of arms. Kraft agrees, and the priest begins the ritual. The coat of arms abilities are being diagnosed. Suddenly, the attendant freezes in surprise. He says he can't believe this is possible. Kraft is confused. The priest explains that he has never seen anything so incompatible as Kraft and the coat of arms he uses. The incompatibility is so high that using the coat of arms can even harm the guy's health. Kraft is shocked by the new information. The people around him are as amazed as he is. Kraft is ready to faint. The minister insists on changing the coat of arms right now. The fact is that an incompatible coat of arms should not work at all, except in very rare cases. Kraft still can't believe it. In front of the amazed spectators, the priest offers to rewrite the coat of arms right now, and Kraft agrees. The hero asks which coat of arms suits him. The attendant reports that the crest with the most special power is best suited for Kraft. This is Twilight Alchemist. Kraft doesn't know what it is. Everyone is amazed. The guild leader enthusiastically grabs Kraft. He had never heard of the Twilight Alchemist either. It turns out that this crest gives a slight difference from the usual alchemist. So, the alchemist is a valuable crest, but the Twilight Alchemist has never appeared before. There are crests of increased rank here, developing the basic crest. Twilight Alchemist is the same for the basic alchemist, meaning that the main character is currently the strongest among all alchemists. The name sounds so strange because it is temporary. No one has had a coat of arms like this before. The minister came up with it to emphasize that if the protagonist masters alchemy, he will be able to create gold. Answering a direct question about whether he agrees to change the coat of arms, Kraft hesitates, saying goodbye to the old one. Finally, he asks the priest to change the coat of arms to free the old one from suffering. The minister tells him not to worry and begins the conversion ritual. Finally, the minister pronounces the name of the new coat of arms, Twilight Alchemist. The ritual ends, and a new drawing appears on the hero's hand. The hand begins to glow. The hero feels how enormous magical energy completely fills his body. He can't believe it's his magic. The coat of arms on the hand is golden. The priest says that among the colored coats of arms, the golden ones have the highest priority. He has never heard of such a thing and will tell others about this pattern. The hero thanks the servant, who replies that he was simply doing his job. An unfamiliar girl exclaims loudly. It's her first time seeing an alchemist, and one of such a high level. The guild leader introduces her. The girl's name is Letha Hemen. Letha is a member of the group heading to the border. They meet Kraft. While Letha is discussing how nice it would be to have an alchemist in the party, Kraft asks how such a little girl can go to the border. The guild leader chuckles indulgently. He reports that Letha is not only entering, but leading the group. Kraft is astonished. The leader continues that it is irrational to send such a good alchemist to the border. Letha loudly objects. She grabs the hero and cuddles up to him, not intending to give him up. Kraft is confused by this situation. Letha and the leader are still arguing about where to send Kraft. The leader notices Kraft's confusion and says that Letha is actually part dwarf and is actually older than she looks. This causes a fit of anger in Letha, who threatens the leader with a huge hammer. The leader humbly apologizes to Letha, and Kraft thinks that he is actually quite weak. Kraft asks Letha to let him go. He still feels awkward. The leader makes another joke about Letha's age. She hits the floor with a hammer with terrible force. The whole building shakes and the beams collapse. Letha says that the money for the repairs will be taken from the Builders Guild, and everyone agrees. Kraft thinks that the leader himself is to blame. The head of the Builders Guild speaks with some pride about how strong Letha is. However, he worries about another person, the village manager. The direct lineage of the border count is involved in the case. Kraft is puzzled by how a nobleman can rule over only one border village. The chapter explains how he negotiates. But, he thinks, with a half-dwarf and a Twilight Alchemist on hand, they can handle it. Kraft has a bad feeling about this. But this will be his first job as an alchemist, and he will try very hard. The next morning dawns. Everyone is eager to leave, and Letha assures them that they will leave as soon as the wagons are fully loaded. There are so many carts and luggage, as if the entire guild was going with them. But it only seems that way because they take with them everything the settlers need in their new place. The hero watches as the carts are loaded. The hero's luggage is stored in a spatial storage. Kraft learned to use this skill overnight, as soon as he became an alchemist. When he tells the headmaster and Letha about this, they are very surprised. Kraft did not expect such a reaction. The leader doesn't even know about such a skill, and Letha claims that it is very rare. They ask Kraft to use it now. The leader finds something to try it on. It's a huge cartload of bricks. Kraft tries to talk his way out of it, but the boss keeps trying to persuade him. Letha supports the leader. He says that the bricks are very heavy and compact, which will allow you to immediately find out how much Kraft's storage can hold. He agrees that this is the best way to test the skill. Thinking that his abilities definitely won't be able to handle this, The hero casts a spell and directs it at the cart. To his surprise, everything happens perfectly, and the cart disappears into the vault. Everyone is shocked. It wasn't difficult, although it's surprising that the skill worked on such a large load. The hero tries to return the cart to its place, and he succeeds. Kraft is delighted. He has never used such powerful magic. The hero thinks that if he fails with alchemy, he can now work as a loader. Meanwhile, the leader asks to gather all the carts together, intending to use craft. The ability works on all carts at once too, which makes everyone present extremely happy. Kraft and Lifa are surrounded by admiring people. Their delight makes the hero nervous. The head of the guild offers the hero, despite Kraft's objections, money for transporting the goods. After all, if someone finds out that an alchemist of this level works for free, Kraft will have a lot of problems. Surrounded by grateful people, the hero reflects that he has earned enough money for a couple of months of comfortable life at once, and this is the merit of only one skill. He admires his new coat of arms. Lifa calls out to Kraft. She tells him to address her without formalities from now on. Now all the members of the guild are his friends, and he can call her by her short name. Everyone is excited to have such strong teammates on the team. Lifa wishes the hero good luck, and he thanks her. So, the hero became a Twilight alchemist, and boldly enters into a new life. So, Kraftwaken is an unlucky mage who was repeatedly excluded from teams. Despite this, he found a new calling, and after receiving the strongest magical crest, Twilight Alchemist, he goes to Kaitaku village as a full-time alchemist. Kraft and Lifa go to the ceremony of sending off the Pioneer Corps. The hero does not know what it is, but the girl assures that it is just a tradition. He hopes that the ceremony will not last long and urges Lifa to finish it quickly. But to their surprise, the square is filled with marching soldiers and armor. The head of the guild is indignant that he asked to make the ceremony simpler, to which the leader of the warriors replies that someone has come a long way, and he must be met with dignity. A tall nobleman steps out from behind the soldiers and greets the leader. His name is Zaid Gasodal Vale. Everyone falls to one knee. Lifa whispers the situation to the kneeling Kraft. There is no need to kneel, as this is not an official visit, just a meeting. Zaid begins to say that his younger brother is responsible for the village of Kaitaku. He also steps forward. His name is Kyle Gassadal Wade, and he is a very small boy, which causes puzzled whispers. The leader is discouraged that his leader will be a small child. Kraft and Lifa also look ahead with displeasure. The hero has a bad feeling. It turns out that Kyle is accompanied by a little girl. This is his younger sister, Mina Vale. Kyle says that there are some circumstances. Because of them, the boy took his sister with him. The leader tries to object. He asks Zaid to think about the safety of the children because the village is dangerous. But he already knows. Zaid asks the boy if he is ready for the hike, and he replies that he is. So, according to Zaid, there is nothing to worry about. Moreover, the aristocrat threatens that if something happens, the leader of the expedition will be held responsible and everyone will be punished. Kraft understands that Zaid's plans are to give his younger brother a chance to prove himself in words, but in reality, an impossible task that will damage Kyle's reputation. The boy clenches his fists resolutely as the aristocrat continues his rant. Here Kraft interrupts Zaid. In front of the frightened Lifa and Glava, he loudly declares that he is confident of the success of the enterprise. The girl is nervous. Zaid is interested. Kraft says the boy reminds him of his own childhood and he will help Kyle. At least, unlike Kraft, the boy is not alone. Kraft will prove that the boy is not useless. He is sure that soon they will solve all the problems and return victorious. Zaid froze in amazement. The guild members clutched their heads. Suddenly, the aristocrat bursts out laughing. He acknowledges Kraft's bravery, as well as his rudeness. However, he is certain that things will not go well for the settlers. He turns around and leaves, wishing the guys good luck and advising them to remember that the result is above all else. The hero thinks that this is the worst sending-off ceremony in his life. The head and Lifa immediately press him, asking how he dared to arrange such a thing. Kraft could not restrain himself. Kyle then speaks up, interrupting the showdown. He asks what prompted Kraft to intervene. The leader and Lifa immediately fall down, dragging the hero along with them. They ask the aristocrats not to be angry, but the boy says that there is no need to bow. Kraft tells the boy that he himself was in a similar situation. He tells him about his life as a useless adventurer. After everything Kraft has been through, the hero feels close and wants to help Kyle. Kyle says that he is indeed a weakling, but he will do his best this time. He hopes that he can help in some way. Finally, he loudly admits that he needs Craft's support. His sister backs up his brother's words. Craft assures the boy that they will definitely cope. His words are accompanied by general jubilation. The guild members remember Kyle's kindness and shout that they are glad to be on the same team with him. So, the boy's reputation improved significantly. The team left the construction guild. They made a detour because going straight ahead was dangerous. It took them 2 days to reach the forest. Craft and Leafboy are walking too fast. The others can barely keep up with them and are very tired. People ask how much longer they have to go and beg for rest. Leafa suggests stopping for a day. The journey drags on. Night falls. Leafa complains about how difficult it is to keep to a schedule. Craft suggests crafting a stamina potion that will allow people to stay awake longer. The endurance potion is a medicine that will give the team strength. It is not difficult, and Craft can make it for everyone. Leafa says that each potion requires a bucket of herbs, and they don't have that many. But Craft realizes that with a crest as powerful as his, he can create a potion with just a spoonful of the right herbs. He wants to test his theory. The boys scoop up a glass of water, then add a spoonful of herbs from Craft's storage. The potion of stamina is created in the bowl. This is the first potion that Craft made after becoming an alchemist. The potion glows in the dark. He hands the girl the bowl, and she concentrates on assessing its quality with magic. Craft is waiting for the verdict. Suddenly, Leafa screams in surprise. She can't believe that Craft made such a special potion. It turns out that the created potion is of legendary quality. Both are surprised. Herb tells the hero that the created potion is magnificent. It works for half a day and is stored for 1,000 years. Leafa is delighted. They decide to give the potion to everyone the next day. Morning comes. The settlers try the soup and wonder what happened to its taste. Everyone admires the taste of the soup and asks Craft what new seasoning he used. The potion makes the soup much tastier. Last night everyone was lying around exhausted, but now there was no fatigue. Even the horse drank some potion and perked up. Craft offers the potion to Kyle and his sister, who have not tried it yet, but the hero is interrupted. The children's bodyguards, Alfred and Persia, are concerned about the children's health. They think the potion is so effective that it's suspicious. However, the other settlers are doing well, and the boy also trusts Craft. His determination amazes the knights. Alfred tries the potion himself, and clutches his chest after draining the bottle. Energy overflows him. Persia even worries if everything is okay with him. Craft assures that the potion has no side effects. The potion's effect is very strong, but the backlash can be no less strong. Suddenly, the alarm is raised. A group of goblins is attacking the camp. Persia tries to assess the strength of the defenders, and the results are disappointing. Only one figure runs out to meet the goblins, shouting that he will deal with them. The goblins are advancing. Alfred charges into the crowd of goblins and scatters them with powerful attacks. No matter how powerful the technique he uses, the knight does not get tired. Craft is grateful to him for his help. With renewed energy, the settlers are even ahead of schedule. They were planning to reach their destination in a month, but it turned out to be faster. The team reaches its goal in just a week. However, the picture that opens up is not at all encouraging. They look skeptically at the overgrown ruins of houses. It turns out that Leafy grew up in this village. Craft watches her touch the rubble, remembering her childhood. Someone calls out to Leafy. The guys find a good place, and they should restore the village, right here. Craft thought he'd have to build everything from scratch on the wasteland, so he's happy. But Leafy's still not sure. According to her, this village used to belong to the dwarves. Kyle comes over. As the manager, he needs to talk to everyone before work. Leafy replies that the settlers love Kyle, and it would be nice if he gave a speech. She runs off to gather people, while Craft thinks about being in Leafy's hometown. Craft would like to say something to the girl to cheer her up. At this time, Kyle politely addresses the hero, who at first does not notice that he is an aristocrat. Craft apologizes for his rude answer. The boy confidently says that he wants to be closer to Craft. He asks him to address him without formalities. Craft refuses because of the difference in status. But the boy insists. He uses his charm, and Craft is ready to give in. They look at each other, and the hero eventually agrees. Kyle is unusually happy, but his security is not happy. Kyle begins his speech to the settlers. He talks about demarcating the border. The land they are located on must be developed as soon as possible. He asks his people to make every effort to achieve this. The crowd erupts in applause. Kyle's bodyguards even shed tears. The boy accepts the admiration with confidence. The hero notices Kyle's sister in the distance, who is timidly supporting her brother. The hero turns to her. He says that the girl can stand next to him if she wants. Then the girl rushes to Kraft and cuddles up to him. Kyle, meanwhile, asks the settlers to take care of the alchemist. Kraft is surprised. The boy explains the request by saying that the hero has already helped everyone a lot and will be useful in the future. The settlers want to honor Kraft. He squeezes out of himself that they all should work hard, but the people are approaching. The builders are delighted and grab the boy and start throwing him into the air. Lifa watches from a safe distance and says that now Kraft is also responsible for these people. Despite the protests, this continued for almost an hour. When the guy is finally released, Lifa is already busy with organizational work. Lifa wants to reward the bodyguards who accompanied them. They only ask for a bottle of stamina potion as a reward. Kraft offers them a bottle, but Lifa interrupts him and says that a special bottle is needed to preserve the quality of the potion and let Kraft make it. But Kraft remembers and immediately says that the potion has a shelf life of 1,000 years. This shocks everyone. In a special bottle, the potion will be stored for 1,000,000 years. The adventurers leave after receiving the potion, and the builders are already building houses. Lifia is shown a house she can live in. She wonders why she is being placed with Kraft. He notices that the house is much larger than the others. He asks if she really doesn't want to live together. The girl mumbles in response, embarrassed. Kraft makes an awkward joke, which embarrasses her even more. He agrees that living together is strange, but they are both members of the guild, and therefore comrades. The girl is upset by the young man's naivety. Leafy says that living in the same room is quite ambiguous, but the builder assures that this house has separate rooms, and they will live in different ones, so she has nothing to worry about. The girl is very embarrassed. Kyle approaches, having business with both of them. But Leafy is busy. She angrily throws Kraft's head into the ground for embarrassing her. The boy is scared, but he turns to Leafy with a pressing problem. The village lacks a well, and it is inconvenient to go to the river every time. Kraft agrees that it would be better to have at least one well in the village itself. Leafy doubts that they will find the water vein easily, but Kraft says that he can create water. Leafy does not believe him because such things are done by mages, not alchemists, but Kraft remembers the spell for creating water that he learned earlier. With his new coat of arms, he is filled with magic and ready to use his knowledge. Leafy and Kyle are delighted, but Kraft has an even better idea. He suggests using dowsing. The guys are confused, they don't know what it is. Leafy guesses that this is a way to find water or ore veins. This is indeed the case. Kraft wants to use alchemy to make a magical pendulum from ordinary stone. This pendulum moves while being located above the underground veins, so they can search for water without Kraft. But there is a problem. Crafting lacks magic stones. There is no material to create them either. Such stones drop from monsters. The rarer and stronger the monster, the better the stones. They are widely used in alchemy. Kraft needs the orc's magic stone, but it's hard to get. If Persia and Alfred are sent to get it, there will be no one to leave the children with. You can buy stones in the city, but since they are needed in large quantities and constantly, it will be difficult to purchase. Kraft says he's ready to start hunting for stones, and then one of the settlers comes running. He says that Reconnaissance has discovered an orc village nearby. This is a huge stroke of luck for Kraft. There are at least 20 orcs in the village. The settlers are scared, because they are ordinary villagers, they know how dangerous orcs are. However, Lafia is not scared even by 20 orcs. She says that even though she is retired as an adventurer, she can still fight a few orcs. However, Kraft says he will go alone. He is also a former adventurer, and will not allow the girl to do something so dangerous. She objects that she was an adventurer too. Kraft asks to leave the reconnaissance to him. No one expected him to go into reconnaissance, but Kraft says that his being a terrible mage plays a big role here. Because of this, he had to do everything else: cook, mend, collect herbs. He also went on reconnaissance missions often, so let them leave that to him. Kyle and Lifia admit that Kraft has been through a lot. He bids farewell to his comrades, assuring them that he is trained enough to stand up for himself. So, Kraft goes out to explore. He notices how hard it is to move through the forest. It would be much harder if he didn't have a stamina potion. He is careful because there may be traps in the forest. He also takes measures to avoid getting lost. Soon he senses danger. Trusting his intuition, he finds an orc camp. Orcs roast game on fires and eat it. Kraft specifies that there are not 20 orcs, but about 30. In reality, Kraft went on a reconnaissance mission to test the high-level magic that was now available to him as an alchemist. He was still unsure, so he didn't want to talk about her to his comrades. At least he'll try, and even if it turns out to be useless, it's not scary. Sitting in the bushes, he ponders his next steps. He believes in the power of his coat of arms, but if something happens, he will simply run away. He is good at that. Finally, Kraft gets up and uses a new skill, Ice Prison. With a loud sound, ice fills the orc clearing. The hero can't believe his eyes. The orcs are frozen inside the ice flows that appeared out of nowhere. Kraft bursts into excited cries. He finally got a great offensive spell. The best spell he had before was only good for moving things. But now his potential has been fully realized. He is glad that he can perform such dangerous magic. The snowstorm raised by the spell is still walking around. Here, Kraft notices that he is terribly cold. He had put a lot of power into the spell, and now he was in the middle of a snowstorm. It would be a shame to freeze to death from his own spell. So he quickly gathered all the stones and returned to the village. Kraft returns to the village with his loot. Everyone stares at him, wide-eyed. He surprises the builders by telling them he nearly froze to death, and their surprise increases when he explains that there were actually 33 orcs, not 20. The hero says he used strong attack magic. But Lifea objects, because Kraft was kicked out of the guild as a useless mage. That's true, but Kraft was somehow able to use magic after changing his crest. With so many orc magic stones, Kraft could go back and be an adventurer again, but he looks at Kyle and gives up on that idea. The hero wants to show Kyle's brother what they are capable of. Now, with the help of stones, Kraft creates a magical pendulum, and they can go in search of a place for the well. You need to move, imagining a water vein, and the artifact will begin to glow as it approaches the target. They do so. Suddenly, Kraft stops. At the point where it stopped, the artifact shines the brightest. They begin to dig, with Lifa preventing Kraft from joining the work so that he can rest. They dig furiously and finally freeze in surprise. Everyone is rejoicing because they have found water. The builders can't believe they found the vein on the first try, because it's usually much more difficult. Lifa is ranting about how Kraft is a hero for destroying monsters and finding a well. The builders say that since that's the case, they'll now build him the best well. The morning comes, which greets the hero with the news that a new well has been built. As he begins to eat his breakfast, Kraft notices that aristocratic children are approaching him. Mina, Kyle's sister, wishes him a good morning. Kyle says that this is an exceptional case, and it means that the girl has become attached to Kraft. But she doesn't want to approach Kraft, because she is shy and has manners. In response to the boy's question about his plans for today, Kraft says that he is free, and will most likely be doing potion research. Mina is touched by this. Kraft sighs. The girl touches his cloak, but he does not understand what the aristocrat wants. She is too quiet. The girl's bodyguard Belcia watches this. She says that the girl is trying to get closer to the hero. Kraft notes that Belcia is very different from Lithia. The bodyguard admires Kraft's spatial storage as he retrieves several magic stones from it. The young man crushes the stones and creates a healing potion in a barrel. It takes a little time, and the potion is ready. Since it won't spoil, the potion will be taken to the warehouse. The girls watch it. Mina stares at the young man. Belcia says that they shouldn't distract the hero any longer and that they should get back to their business, but he nonchalantly replies that it's a great honor to spend time with such beauties. He says that the girls can stay longer if they want, but when he turns around, he suddenly notices a change in Belcia's demeanor, who looks at him in anger. The girl is very embarrassed and, to express this, she attacks Kraft with complaints. Then Mina clutches the boy's cloak in her hand again, glancing at Belcia. She shakes her head, stands up to her full height, and follows Persia, showing with her appearance that he should not get so carried away with compliments. Time passed, and the young man made many barrels of the potion on his own, filling an entire cellar. He pauses in thought, because he wants to test the potion's effectiveness, but he doesn't want to hurt himself. Then he is distracted by a scream. He runs out of the house and sees a wounded hunter called Jitaro being brought out of the forest. The young man is carefully laid on the ground and they begin to ask him what happened. It turns out that there had just been a skirmish with goblins. The hunters fought them and destroyed every single one, but they themselves were not prepared for the fight and suffered. Alfred reacts quickly. He orders the village's defenders to form patrols and hide the remaining residents in their houses. Together with his assistants, he takes Jotaro to the shelter and asks Kraft if he has any healing potions. He says yes. The young man's wounds are unusually deep. Belcia asks Jotaro why he didn't run away when he saw the goblins. But he says that they were too close to the village and the hunters decided it would be dangerous to leave things as they were. He also calls Belcia his big sister. Belcia is embarrassed and changes the subject. Kraft cleans the boy's wounds and examines them. They are still deep. Things are bad, they are losing Jotaro. Belcia doesn't know any potions that would definitely help the boy. They are afraid that the wounds are fatal due to blood loss. Kraft stands in thought. He doesn't know whether to use the untested potions on him. But there is no doctor in their village who specializes in treatment, so there is no choice either. The guy decides to give the potion to the hunter. Letha is already carrying the finished barrel. Kraft scoops up the potion with a ladle and splashes it on the patient. He disappears in a cloud of steam for a few moments. Everyone is surprised by what is happening. Kraft had never seen such a reaction or such steam. He's already thinking that this might be a failure, when suddenly, the boy opens his eyes and sits up straight. He says it doesn't even hurt. The wounds have healed. But that can't be right. Healing potions don't work that fast. However, Jotaro really isn't hurt. The young man thanks the hero. He has fully recovered. This is his first time being treated with a potion, and he is happy that it works so well. Kraft assures him that this is an exceptional case. They can't believe that the potion will replenish the missing blood. But the boy feels fine. Kraft asks him to watch himself more carefully until tomorrow. But Jotaro is going to help in the field as if he didn't even hear what was said to him. He runs away, calling Belcia big sister at the end, which angers her. However, the young man looks as if he has truly fully recovered. Belcia says that potions of such potency should be reported to the military. Kraft says that it is not so bad, because then the village might get orders from the military. Belcia doubts it. She asks if the hero is ready to keep what she says next, a secret. Belcia takes the hero to a secluded place, holding a small meeting with Leafia. She immediately says that she wants to tell them something important. Even though the girl doesn't want to scare Kraft, the nobility in the border regions are constantly fighting with each other or planning attacks. If a potion with such power ends up in the hands of one side, it could cause a new war. They know the army will pay a lot to get this potion, but for the sake of peace it is worth keeping it a secret. At the same time, they will be able to study its effectiveness further. The hero agrees, but still wants to sell the potion sooner or later. Belcia says she will hold off on reporting. The guy's plans are as follows. Belcia goes on to protect the aristocrats, Leafia to build a fence, and Kraft will try to talk to Jotaro again. The thing is that the young man is an experienced hunter and would not have let the goblin injure him just like that. Goblins are not very dangerous for those who know how to fight. Belcia thinks about it too and admits that Kraft is right. So, the hero goes into the field to look for Jotaro. He asks how the working youth is feeling, but he is as healthy as a bull and even says that he would go hunting himself. The hero persuades him not to do this. When asked how the goblin injured him, Jotaro replies that his weapon is quite old and constantly becomes dull. The hero understands that, indeed, the metal is rusting. Kraft immediately goes to the barn where the young man left his blade. And although Jotaro is ready to do physical exercises and practice with a sword, Kraft once again cools the young man's ardor, forbidding him to do physical work that day. Kraft finds the blade in the barn and immediately understands the situation. The guy's broken machete is of very low quality and will continue to break even after being repaired. Kraft picks out a suitable alchemical practice to try and is glad he has enough stones. He then begins testing. Meanwhile, Jotaro brags to the other hunters about his healed wounds. He takes off his shirt and shows everyone that there are not even any scars left. Everyone is delighted. They say that Kraft is great. Now they can get hurt without fear. Kraft really doesn't want them to think that. Kraft visits Leafia at the forge. She is sitting and forging something. He asks her to test his new invention on the old ammunition that she is currently repairing. He hands her a bottle of oil. It's special hardening oil. Leafia is shocked. She says she's heard about it. All the blacksmiths use it. But despite this, it is very rare because only alchemists can make it. This explains the girl's delight. Now if you use it for forging, the strength will increase. Especially considering Leafy's skills, the result will be absolutely wonderful. Kraft says he admires blacksmiths. But forging is not Leafy's main job. However, she still wants to fix everything here. The girl starts forging. She works hard on the blade. When the blade is ready, they let Jotaro try it out, and he is delighted with the quality of the new weapon. He swings it around and cuts things, so the boys tell him to be careful. Leafa examines the machete blade carefully. There is no damage to the blade. The effect is really significant. If tempered in a simple way, the blade would have shattered like glass. But the oil greatly improved its performance. Now Kraft wants to use a different potion. They coat the blade with this potion. Kraft mysteriously suggests that Jotaro try the machete on a tree. He jumps high and hits a protruding branch. Without effort, he cuts off the branch. Following the branch, the tree, accidentally touched by the blade, also begins to tilt. Jotaro is pleased, because now everything cuts like butter. Here everyone notices that the tree is also falling. This shocks the children. They look frozen at the fallen tree trunk. Jotaro yelps loudly. Kraft is pleased with the effect, because the blade is no longer a machete in its capabilities. The new potion is sharpening oil. The hero makes fun of Leafa, who is the first to say it out loud. Leafa is alarmed. She is not joking at all. Kraft apologizes to her. She asks Kraft to warn everyone about the effect next time, so that no one gets hurt. The boys let Jotaro go with the order to use the oil sparingly and be careful when handling weapons. The young man runs away in delight, shouting that now he will show everyone. Leafia covers her face with her hands, because she warned her how dangerous it was. They watch as the machete cuts things like a magic sword. As a blacksmith, Leafy can assess the sword's potential. Kraft says the sharpening oil's effect should last a day for normal use, and half a day for felling trees. If you apply it to all the tools, the bottle will last for a week. They have magic stones to make more, but that's not the main problem at the moment. Leafa says they need to stop Alfred now. Kraft says it's impossible. Evening comes and Kraft goes out for a walk because he can't sleep. He thinks he's done all his work for today, replenished his potion supplies. There are some groans coming from Kyle's room. The hero looks in and notices that the guy is breathing heavily in his sleep, as if he was having a nightmare. He's literally bending over in agony. Kraft calls out to the boy. The hero tries to wake up the boy. But Persia appears, asking him to remain silent so as not to wake the prince. She says that nothing unusual is happening. Kraft is shocked. According to the girl, the situation is better than usual now. The boy can sleep normally only with restorative potions, but sometimes he has attacks when the effect wears off. Kraft is surprised that Kyle's condition is so bad. The girl says that he usually tries to hide it, so it is difficult to notice that something is wrong. It turns out the boy has some kind of heart problem. This explains to Kraft why the bodyguard is so protective of the aristocrat. Persia can only help the boy with her physical strength. She wants to ask the boy for something, but he already guesses what it is, so he immediately agrees. The alchemist is confident that he has the ability to make a cure for this disease. The hero openly says that Kyle is like a younger brother to him, so he will do everything for him. The girl is inspired and asks him to begin. Kraft agrees. He goes to the library to find the information he needs. He finds records of the necessary plants, but getting them will not be easy because they grow in difficult conditions. You need to go to the swamps. There are a lot of dangerous monsters there. Kraft understands why special medicinal potions so rarely appear on the market, because it is so difficult to collect materials for them. There is a swamp nearby. Kraft decides to go there. The swamp is teeming with huge and dangerous hydras. Kraft studies them from afar, using magic. It is a tracking magic that allows him to see far away. He realizes that there are a lot of hydras in the swamp. The fact is that hydras, thanks to their physique and number of heads, can control a large area and are rightfully the masters of the swamp. Kraft understands that it will not be possible to get the herbs unnoticed. When he returns, Leafy asks where the boy has been. He replies that he went to get herbs for a new potion and found some, but was unable to collect them. Kraft says he was hampered by the hydras. He can't kill them with a shot because of his large field of view. Leafia is visibly shocked to hear about the hydras. Kraft asks why. She replies that he doesn't know something about the gnome village that was here before. The girl, in tears, says that it was the hydras who destroyed the village. Usually they do not leave their habitat and are not dangerous if you do not approach them, but here they suddenly gathered and attacked the gnomes for some unknown reason. Lifia says that even now they sometimes appear. Difficult memories upset the girl. After Lifia's story, Kraft sits silently next to her, not knowing what to say. The girl asks him what he intends to do. He replies that his goal is herbs, and he will collect them alone to better hide from the hydras. He does not intend to fight because the hydras are not aggressive unless disturbed. But then, Lifia resolutely says that she will go with him. She asks Kraft not to push himself and trusts his experience. She says she agrees to his leadership, then they decide to assemble a team after all. He gathers suitable people in the house and tells them that he is going to go to the swamp for herbs and what dangers await him there. He doesn't talk about Kyle's illness. He meets some teammates. After a brief hesitation, Persia volunteers. She asks the astonished Alfred to take care of the children. Alfred realizes that Persia most likely has her own reasons for going. He agrees. Jotaro also wants to join. He is a little discouraged by the reaction to his candidacy, but is confident that he will go. Jotaro will be an archer, so he will support them from afar. If Leafy and Persia are in the vanguard, then together they will be able to protect Kraft. There are 4 of them now. Kraft notices that Leafy is definitely thinking about something else, but there is no time to ask her. Finally, everyone is ready. He asks to take just a little hand luggage, because the hero will carry everything he needs in his storage. He wants the team members to be as agile as possible. Persia does not change clothes, as her light armor fits perfectly. On the other hand, Lifia appears before her companions in full metal armor with a giant hammer. Kraft is indignant, because he wanted the companions to relieve themselves as much as possible. However, the girl asks him to simply observe. She jumps high and moves quickly, showing that she is quite agile in this outfit. Kraft is amazed, he did not expect this. That leaves Jotaro, who has updated his equipment and looks like a bandit or pirate. It turns out he's wearing all his best clothes. Kraft doesn't want to tell him that the boy doesn't look so good. Kraft tells a pleased Jotaro to use the oil on the arrows. It's okay if it doesn't work right away, they'll come back and try again. He then suggests that the whole team should not be shy and use whatever potions they want. Persia notes that in the army they were told to resort to potions as a last resort. But this is not the army, and the lives of the settlers are more important than anything else. But there is more. Persia confidently declares that she simply does not intend to get wounded. So, the team is walking through the swamp. Kraft chose the path with the least amount of hydras so as not to get into a fight. If this happens, all the hydras in the area will come crawling in. Kraft begins to tell his plan. The plan is for Leafy to attack the hydra from the front, Persia to come from the right, Jotaro to support from afar. As a last resort, Kraft will join the fight too, and when they get to the right place, Kraft will collect herbs and everyone will run away together. At this point, Leafy asks everyone to be quiet. They see that the hydra has grabbed the crocodile and is squeezing it. The hydra devours the crocodile, swallowing it whole. The monster towers over the swamp. It is truly huge. This is what the hydra is like. Lifia orders everyone to be on guard. Lifia boldly moves straight towards the hydra. The monster is simply enormous. Since the hydra is larger than they expected, Kraft suggests retreating, but Leafa shouts that they can handle it and it's too late to retreat. The monster towers over the petite girl. She blocks the monster's vicious headbutt with her hammer. Kraft and Jotaro admire how she didn't even flinch. He wonders what kind of technique the girl is using. Leifa's crest is for crafting, but she can use combat techniques. This indicates a lot of training. Finally, a bodyguard attacks from the side. Her sword is covered in sharpening oil. Kraft is still not sure it will work well against the huge monster. The girl uses a technique called Phoenix Whirlwind. She slices through the monster's neck with her blow, flying past him. All 4 are shocked, as the hydra literally falls apart. The bodyguard lands in the water. Behind her, pieces of her destroyed neck fall into the swamp. Jotaro loudly admires the girl. The girl says that the potion works great. Meanwhile, Jotaro takes out the monster's magic stone. Kraft again thinks that the boy looks like a bandit. Suddenly, Lifia starts laughing. She laughs louder and louder, and her companions begin to worry. The girl jumps up and runs somewhere as fast as she can. Everyone is shocked. The knight shouts that they need to catch up with her quickly, and she herself rushes in pursuit. She runs after him unusually fast. Kraft and Jotaro follow her. But when they catch up with the girls, they see a scene of carnage. Both of them pounced on another Hydra, cutting it up before the eyes of the shocked young men. Even though they use their strongest attacks, the stamina potion keeps them from running out of steam. The monster then tries to retreat. But Lifea is sure that the monster can no longer escape. Kraft and Jotaro watch the carnage. They have to dodge it themselves, and they curse the girl's carelessness. There is a lull. The mutilated Hydras lie in the swamp. The team watches this scene, frozen. Here Lifea comes to her senses and turns to the guys. They are scared. She is pleased, but says she regrets changing the plan. Kraft fearfully assures her that there is no problem. The girl leans proudly on her hammer. Now she was able to take some revenge for the gnome village. Kraft agrees with her. Lifea thanks him for this opportunity. The knight also speaks up. She justifies herself by saying that she had no choice but to join the battle. But this sounds unconvincing. However, it will be enough for her that Kraft is not angry about the failure of the plan, because they still got the grass. Kraft wonders if Lifea's rampage is the reason she was sent here. But it's not. Everyone returns to the village. The young man finally prepared the legendary medicine. Without tests, it can't be given to Kyle. However, there is no one to test on. All the villagers are healthy. Then the bodyguard who was waiting for the potion to be made bursts in. She learns about the problem and says that she will stand under the waterfall herself and get sick. Kraft begins to consider this information. He asks the girl if she has ever gotten sick like this before, but she is hardened by training, and the waterfall will not be able to put her down. Her dedication is useless. Kyle appears, demanding that everyone calm down. Everyone is surprised where he came from. They wish him good morning. Kyle goes to the table with the test tubes. Somehow he knows that the potions are made for him. That's right, Kyle thanks the young man. The boy grabs the bottle and drinks it. No one manages to stop him. Everyone is amazed. It's too late to stop the boy, although Lifea tries to say that the potions have not been tested. Then there are no problems, because the boy believes in Kraft. He says he feels much better, and everyone is delighted. The boy thanks Kraft. However, the guy addresses the aristocrat with all possible seriousness. He asks him not to lie. The boy tries to convince him that the potion really did make him feel better. But Kraft is adamant. He demands that Kyle tell the truth. Spreading lies about the potion's effects will cause many problems. The bodyguards are discouraged by Kraft's words. The thing is, Kraft was only half sure that the potion could cure the boy. Potions like the one made cure illnesses like colds and flu. But these are diseases that appear due to external influences. And Kyle was born with this disease. Kraft was not sure that the potion would help against a congenital disease. The bodyguard yells at Kraft, not believing that Kyle will stay like this forever. But everyone goes silent when the hero announces another idea that should work. Kraft turns to Kyle and asks him to be patient with the stamina potions. He says he's used to it and won't lie anymore. The bodyguard turns to Kraft. She apologizes for yelling. He says it's okay, it's a natural reaction. The girl says that she leaves the safety of the village to Kraft and leaves with the boy. Lifea is surprised that the legendary potion did not help. Kraft replies that it is most likely a special type of disease, since doctors were unable to help. He knows that healing magic is powerless against congenital diseases, but he thought they would be lucky. But there is another way, although it will be more troublesome. For now, Kyle can use recovery potions to suppress the disease, and the settlers should expand the village. He plans to create his own adventurers guild here. This is useful in every sense, because the village will need strong people to protect it. There is a potion that can heal Kyle, but the herbs from the swamps will not be enough, and the materials are rare. The necessary grass grows mainly in a very dangerous place, in the dwellings of dragons. The guy resolutely tells himself that he will cure Kyle. A group of travelers are walking. They have come a long way to settle in a border village. There have been many monsters along the way, and they are nervous about finding a rundown settlement at the end. One of the travelers whispers that he wants to meet someone else. Travelers say that they are prepared for the harshest conditions. However, when they reached their destination, they never expected to see a flourishing city in front of them. Everywhere there are big houses, clean streets, and even a new well. Lifea meets the travelers. One of the group asks incredulously if it is true that the village is only 6 months old. She naively confirms that this is so. She says that she expects a lot from the new arrivals. They are amazed. The village has become much more cheerful during this time. The settlers are attracting pioneers to open a local adventurers guild. Suddenly, someone calls out to Kraft. This is his friend Reddick, an adventurer. Kraft looks at him in amazement. The hero once worked with him in the same group. The young man asks Reddick how he got here. Was it really to guard the new arrivals? He answers that yes, but it's not just that. Reddick arrives to do his job. Kraft jumps in surprise. The thing is, Reddick is a C-rank adventurer, and the people in his party are also experienced warriors. Kraft doesn't understand what they are doing in such a remote place. Reddick replies that there are plenty of monsters here, and now that the village has appeared, they can hunt them without worrying about supplies. Reddick also wants to admit that he regrets Kraft's departure from the band. Kraft is embarrassed and doesn't know what to say. The hero has something to say to Reddick. He remembers joining his group when he was just starting out. While everyone was still new adventurers, everything was great. But then his friends became more experienced, and he still couldn't get better. Kraft then felt like a burden, not keeping up with the general level, and left the group. After that, he joined different teams, but the same fate awaited him everywhere. Kraft tells Reddick about this, adding that such an imbalance does not lead to anything good. He asks if the hero knows what they called him in the guild. Kraft knows the nickname, self-proclaimed mage. It turns out that only a few people used it seriously. And even then, they were worthless people. But there was another nickname. Kraft was called the mentor of aspiring adventurers. The new adventurers who found themselves in his group simply didn't want to talk about it out of embarrassment. Kraft had truly never heard of such a thing. Even though they achieved so much thanks to Kraft, they had to kick him out of the band eventually, so many still feel a lot of guilt towards him. Kraft tries to take a fresh look at the days when he trained new adventurers and went on adventures with his comrades. He remembers how people turned away from him eventually, and they broke up. The hero is amazed to realize that despite his feelings of uselessness, even in the guild there were people who cared about him. Reddick states that he and his friends now believe that they will repay Kraft's kindness by participating in the development of his village. The guys shake hands. So, the village is rapidly developing. There are many reasons for this, but one of the main ones is the founding of the Adventurers Guild. These lands have always been teeming with monsters. Now it attracts adventurers who want to hunt in this area. Thanks to this, the village naturally grows and jobs appear. More and more people are coming, they even ran out of available houses. So now, the village is working on expanding the hotel. That's not all, because a shop selling potions and weapons has appeared. It's crowded. A crowd of adventurers fills the entire shop. The shop owner stands behind the counter, amazed that there are so many customers. She says she doesn't know what to do. The crowd hangs on her every word. Kraft is standing there, noting that most just want to see Silura. Life is in full swing around them. Then Kraft is called out. This is little Kyle. He takes the hero to the negotiating room. Kraft, pouring tea, asks if something happened. To this, the boy replies that he needs to discuss something. His sister and bodyguard Belzia are also there. The latter states that the village needs to be named. Kraft is surprised. He didn't know that there was still no name. The fact is that all previous attempts to settle here were unsuccessful. Kraft suggests calling it by the name of the manager, Kyle's village. Alfred and Belcia have already suggested the same thing, but Kraft has no ideas yet. He states that Kyle's achievements are publicly recognized and no one will object. Belcia eagerly agrees, but Kyle wants to emphasize that they created the village together. As more people come in, it will develop more and more on its own. He thinks his name doesn't suit the village. Kraft thinks it's perfect, but suggests they think about it together. He turns to Belcia for ideas. But she stubbornly replies that there are no and cannot be any other options except the village of Kayla. Then the hero turns to Mina, but suggests an even worse name, Crofta Village. Although Kyle likes that name, Kraft suggests calling it Lithia Village. But they object that most of the credit belongs to him. Even Belcia is ready to agree. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door. Lethia enters. She thinks that Kraft and Beltia are deciding who is the boss of the village and wants to come in later, but Kraft calls her inside. She became familiar with the problem and also began to participate in the creative process. She suggests calling it Twilight Village. They object that it sounds gloomy, as if the village is in decline. But it is a logical name because of the main character's coat of arms. After all, he is the Dark Alchemist, and it was thanks to this ability that the village reached its current level of prosperity. Kyle thinks it's a good name, but Kraft doesn't like it. Belcia confirms that the setting sun is a bad omen. Kyle suggests another name, Dawn Village. It also symbolizes the beginning of a journey, the perfect name for a border village, Lifia thinks. Belcia agrees, because Kyle suggested the name. After consulting with Mina, the boy announces a new name, Golden Dawn Village. Everyone immediately starts praising Kyle, not paying any attention to Kraft and what he says. The hero only hears that the boy, having gone to get the necessary documents, tells Lifa that he wanted to name the village in honor of Kraft. A little more time passes. Kraft thinks the moment is right. He comes to Lifa and addresses her. The hero reminds the girl that he has long wanted to go and collect some ore. Now is the right time. He will mine iron, copper, mithril, and adamantite. The hero invites Lifia to join him. He shows on the map where exactly he was going to go. According to the Artisans Guild's predictions, there is the best chance of finding rare minerals there. Looking at the map, Lifia frowns in concentration. Kraft says that it is difficult to get to this place because the forest is filled with monsters. Here, Lifia understands why the village needs adventurers. Indeed, you can send an escort request to the Adventurers Guild and pay for the services from the village budget. Yes, the process of mining the ores will take a long time. But picks can be made from better steel and coated with sharpening potion to speed it up, and Lifia, as a dwarf, can help with finding ores. The hero says he wants to try something else. Lifia studies him closely. She is unhappy that the guy is hiding something again, but Kraft will not reveal the secret. Finally, everyone is ready. Redok, who has joined the group, thanks Kraft for organizing this new quest for them. Kraft replies that he chose the best people in the village. Somehow, Jitaro also got involved, even though Kraft didn't invite him. So the team sets off to get the ores. This is also the first step to saving Kyle's life. Redok warily asks why Lifia is keeping such a close eye on Kraft, but he laps it off. Together with Redok's squad, the guys set off to collect rare metals. Redok, as the leader of the group, introduces his comrades. He himself has the swordsman's crest. He slightly surprises those present by informing them that he and Kraft were once on the same team. There is another girl in the group with a sinister look, Solal. She is a ranger. Kraft greets her as an acquaintance. They met in the village, but never had a chance to talk. They tell each other how glad they are to meet. In fact, Kraft was in love with her when he worked in a group of adventurers. But then he realized that they would not work out. After all, she loves Redok. So, he gave up on those thoughts. It's surprising that they met again. Redok introduces the others, the priest Bep, the magician Bardak, and the warrior Morda. It turns out that Kraft is familiar with both. The mess mage is strong in magic, even without having a coat of arms. And the mug is stronger than any ordinary person. He is rather taciturn, but always shares all the necessary information. Then Jitaro intervenes and loudly introduces himself as a young hunter. Redok immediately asks the young man if he is a bandit. He is offended, because it is his best clothes. Redok tries to console him, saying that it looks like a nameless bandit, like everyone he likes. Jitaro protests, so the team makes their way through the forest, fighting monsters. Redok asks if they will be allowed to requisition the wonderful magical stones and other materials contained in the monsters' bodies. Lifia answers in the affirmative. Kraft praises the adventurers for doing even better than expected. It's all thanks to the stamina potions. The warrior and ranger say they help a lot in combat. The mage complains that there's nothing like that for him. Then Kraft says he has something for the mage too. This is a mana potion. Kraft offers it to Bardak. Everyone is delighted, because it is quite expensive in itself, and this is also of legendary quality. Redok says that they can defeat even a cyclops this way. Lifia is afraid that he might jinx it. Suddenly, the travelers notice a cave nearby. The heroes will have to enter it, because the pendulum shows that there is a lot of ore there. The magician and the alchemist simultaneously create spheres of light. The warriors take torches. The heroes have figured out the lighting, so they enter the cave. The travelers go deeper into the cave. There's water dripping there, and lizards running along the walls. The passage they chose is narrow. But Lifia, looking at the soil, concludes that there must be ore here. Kraft does not understand how she manages to do this. As a dwarf, Lifia can distinguish ores even in the dark. Along with the drop, Lifia checks the quality of the soil as she goes. Everyone counts on her and hopes that this place has not become a dungeon. As Redok says, There is no characteristic aura of a dungeon here. It is just a cave. Strong monsters live in dungeons, special otherworldly places, but you can also find a lot of rarities there. Meanwhile, the passage becomes wider. The heroes come across 3 stone lizards, monsters with tough skin. The adventurers react immediately, launching an organized attack on the monsters. The lizard strikes the warrior's shield with its claw. The ranger draws his bow, hoping for arrows coated in the oil of sharpness. The arrow hits the reptile in the forehead and kills it on the spot. The adventurers are inspired by this. They decide to comb the cave. The battle with the lizards continues. The ranger works in tandem with a warrior, who covers her with his shield. Finally, the battle ends. Reddit confirms that the lizards are finished. Now all they have to do is gather materials and move on. Kraft notes that the guys are a good group. Kraft recalls with slight sadness the time when he himself was an adventurer. Reddick says the lizards were easy to deal with. His merit as a skilled adventurer is undeniable. But both admit that the heat oil played a role too. Reddock is glad that Kraft has changed for the better. The hero agrees. At this point, the priest from Reddick's team says that he would also like to test his abilities. They decide to do it another time. Suddenly, Lifa says that the earth has changed. She has found ore. There is some mithril here, although its concentration is low. The artifact calls the girl further into the cave. She says that she wants to go there. They find some empty space. Suddenly the girl screams in delight. The giant cave is filled with ore crystals. The girl runs towards them, forgetting about caution. This is a huge amount of mithril ore. Lifia knew she would find it here. Everyone congratulates the girl. Suddenly a loud sound is heard. A glowing eye appears from the darkness. Kraft shouts at Lifia to come back immediately. The Cyclops screams at the girl, and the girl screams in fear. The monster emerges from the darkness and looms over the heroes. The boys shout at Lifa to come back. They are very scared. The adventurers begin to understand who he is. This is a Cyclops. The monster rises to its full height, but Lifia fearlessly looks up at it. Reddick rushes to intercept the monster and covers the girl with his body. He orders Lifia and Sora to retreat and asks Morta to support him. According to him, Bardock should use all his attack magic, and Bep will support them all. The adventurers get down to business in a coordinated manner. Morta's axe deals a terrible blow, but Kraft sees that something is wrong here. The Cyclops dodged, jumping back. The monster lets out another long roar. He strikes himself, and the boys somehow manage to escape from him. Morta takes the blow on his shield. From this, the warrior, lifeless, flies back. Bep screams, trying to call him, but a hand with a coat of arms falls on his shoulder. This is an alchemist. He tells the warriors to continue the fight, and he will help the wounded with his potions. He bends over the fallen Morta, takes out a bottle of potion from his bosom, and uses it. The warrior comes to his senses. He feels much better. He jumps to his feet and runs into battle, striking immediately. Everyone is amazed. The man recovered faster than the adventurers expected. It turns out that the Cyclops is quite agile. Reddick asks Soral to shoot the monster in the eye. But she, aiming at the Cyclops, who is taking a hail of blows from Morta, says that this is impossible. The monster moves too fast. Cyclops jumps back again. The monster is very strong. Reddick says it's a one-sided battle. Kraft wonders if there's nothing he can do. Fire and wind are too dangerous to use underground. Earth magic isn't well understood. He doesn't remember area attacks. He gets an idea. The alchemist raises his hand and snowflakes fly up around it. Everyone looks at the hero. They are amazed. Kraft forms an elongated object in the hand. This is his new attack, the Ice Fang Dart. The boy throws the dart at the monster. A magic projectile pierces the monster's chest. Cyclops arches in pain. Everyone is amazed. They have never seen such magic. The impact site begins to freeze. Reddock gathers his men. He orders Sora to aim for the eye, and he and Morta rush at the Cyclops with redoubled force. The warrior uses his attacks, the Storm Sword, and the Wolf's devastating strike. The warriors jump on the Cyclops, dealing terrible blows. Sorrel finally shoots and hits the target. The monster freezes and begins to tilt. Reddick realizes that the giant is falling and orders everyone to move away so that it doesn't get crushed. The Cyclops is down, lying on the ground with a sorrel arrow in his eye and a craft projectile in his chest. The guys finally got it done. They rejoice and hug Kraft, who helped them so much. Lifia is delighted that the adventurers defeated such a strong monster. Kraft tells Reddick that he did a great job and that he expected nothing less from him, but Reddick objects. Reddick says it was Kraft who defeated the monster. Reddick says the alchemist has mastered incredible magic. Soral confirms that they have indeed only delivered the finishing blow. The hero is glad to hear this. Kraft is glad that he and his magic were finally useful to the guys. Now that the cave is safe, Lafaya is eager to mine ore. She is sent to do so. Meanwhile, the adventurers want to collect materials from the monster. They get down to business. The adventurers tell each other that there are plenty of materials, but the monster stinks terribly. Someone calls out to Kraft. This is Lifia, waving her pickaxe, calling for the hero to join her in mining ore. But, inspired, she copes well on her own. Finally, they have 4 barrels of ore, but Lifia would like more. The girl regretfully notes that there should be more ore inside the stone, but her pickaxe is unable to penetrate the rock. Kraft is ready for this. He is going to try out his new weapon. Lifia looks at him indignantly. To the girl's question, the hero answers that it is a magical explosion. He releases magic out of control, and it explodes everything around. Lafaya is sure that this will not end well. Kraft objects that without his signal the explosion will not happen, but that is not what she means. She is afraid of the explosion itself. Then Kraft uses his charm, and assures the girl that since he has never failed before, he will not fail now. The adventurers approach and ask what new things the hero has prepared, but Lifia wants them to step back immediately. She worries about the people and orders them to hide behind rocks. Kraft says there is nothing to worry about. Chitaro is also eager to see the hero's new invention, but Lifia thinks it is better not to see it at all. Reddock is perplexed, because Kraft is such a skilled magician, but Lifia believes that the hero has an unreasonable side. She managed to fully convince only Sorrel. The rest of them crowded around Kraft and examined his new device. Kraft is about to start the countdown. He tells Lifia that she is very worried. He counts, covering his ears. The girls look from behind the rocks with suspicion. The explosion should finally happen, and the explosion thunders. The blast wave slightly hits even the girls hiding behind a pile of stones. They see the hapless adventurers and Kraft flying away, thrown back by the explosion. Everything is covered in smoke, in which only coughing can be heard. Lifia finds Kraft coughing in the smoke. She addresses him. Kraft says he's glad he didn't try it on the Cyclops, but she thinks the boy went too far. Kraft distracts an angry Lifia by pointing behind her. There, in the crevice, crystals are shimmering. Now they can extract even more ore. Kraft says it's good that they tried using his magical explosive. Lifia begins to explain that by using explosives correctly, they can be very useful. By placing them in a rock hole and setting them up in a certain way, they can drill through the rock quite effectively. Kraft admires her for being able to get to this point with just one explosion, but she doesn't want Kraft to change the subject. She tells him that the jokes are over. The hero also hears a sound behind him. It is from the dust that angry adventurers rise, who need to talk to the hero about something. That night, Kraft sat on his knees for 2 hours listening to safety lectures. The trust he had just gained was shattered. A few days later they returned to the village. The people were happy that they had defeated the Cyclops. The children asked if they had found Mafrel, and for them it was almost like a holiday. The guy greeted Kraft. Maina sat next to him. He greeted him back. And then the young man asked where Lifan was. The traveling merchants in the village did not believe that they had actually managed to obtain Mithril. They asked for a time frame for the sale to begin. Lifan tried to stop them. That's why it's delayed. The traders are eager to get their hands on Mithril, no matter the cost. Kyle suggested postponing the report until Lifan arrived. The hero agreed. The girl sat down next to him. Is it okay for her not to be around Kyle? She's usually always around him. She can't even look him in the eye. After a while, Lifan came. She apologized for being late. The merchants almost trampled her. Kraft thought that the girl's hair was all disheveled. 9. Lifan suggested moving on to the report. They explored the cave they had found in the planned location. Inside, they encountered rock lizards, will-o'-the-wisps, and giant pillbugs, among others. Kyle said that it looked like a dangerous cave. The girl confirmed this and added that, however, they were able to quickly extract a large amount of ore. There were 5 main reasons for this. The first reason is magic explosion. The second is oil of sharpness. The third is special storage. The fourth is reliable escort. Kraft ended her story by saying that the fifth reason was Lifan and her knowledge of hands. Thanks to Redok's group, they did everything quickly without injuries. And most importantly, the stamina potion, which played a huge role in the battles. They would not have been able to defeat the Cyclops with just their stamina without these potions. This monster is also called the Adventurer's Killer. Cyclopes pursue people to the bitter end. Unprepared people lost their lives this way. Kyle was glad that they had succeeded. Kraft brought up the subject of mithril. He said that it looked like people had already put new ones on it. The girl broke out in a cold sweat at the thought. Kyle suggested that they not let him leave the village for now. Lifan agreed. She said that recently there had been a revolution in the mithril blacksmithing. Craftsmen who had previously been unable to handle mithril suddenly learned how. As a result, the demand for mithril had instantly increased. So they should aim to sell it when the price reaches its maximum. Kraft said that it was just a personal request, but could they sell some equipment from them to the adventurers who moved here? Kyle said it was a good idea. He suggested making a plan. With the money they were making, Redok's team would be able to upgrade their gear quickly. Then Lifan should start working on the mithril ingots tomorrow. Kraft wanted to ask the girl to do something. A few days later, Lifan approached the guy. She reported that she had finished what he had asked for and called him to come look. She hopes that he will like her. The hero hopes for this too. He is impatient to see her. The girl is more than sure of this. Lifan showed the guy the alchemical crafting cauldron. The young man looked at it and said that it was excellent. The engravings were also magnificent. It's like a work of art. She is truly a great craftswoman. The girl suggested moving it to the guy's alchemy room. He should move it to his storage. The hero took the thing in his hands and everything around him began to crack. Kraft doesn't understand what it was. He fell. Lifan asked if he was okay. He replied that his head began to overflow with information when touching him. The same thing happened to the girl when she made her first special anvil. It surprised her. Could this be some kind of special feature of the artisan's coat of arms? The guy was flooded with so much information that his head was ready to burst. This additional information came at the right time. He decided to try out the boiler at the same time. Kraft began pouring in various liquids and stirring the contents in the cauldron. Everything inside it was shining. Lifan thought it was very beautiful. The young man used magic and everything shone brightly. The girl asked if everything was ready. He answered that it was a success. Now we have a hardening oil for mithril. If you use it with high purity mithril, it will become hard mithril, a metal that is one class higher. Lifan used analysis. She said that this way, the metal would be of the highest quality. They decided to try it right away. The girl left and came back after a while shouting that she had great news. She decided to make a new hammer and anvil, and received a lot of new information about weapons and tools. Now, she can do so many things that she couldn't do before. And even like this. Kraft said that it was amazing, but the girl said that he was amazing. 38. They are only in his debt. And she thanked the guy. He was embarrassed and started talking about how he hadn't done anything. Just an accident. But if she was happy, then he was too. Lifan suggested making new things. Now she would be so busy. The guy realized that she hadn't listened to him at all. Since then, 2 months have passed without incident. The knight informed Kraft that he had gone there and shown the boy the ambrosia flower. Kyle asked if this was the legendary flower. Kraft says he just asked Redok directly. He wanted to know if the flower was really there. The girl watches the heroes standing by the wall. They, in turn, were looking at the ragweed flower. The knight says that they spent a fair amount of time, but were able to determine its exact location. If they went straight this way, the journey would take several days. If they went the right way, it would only take a day or two. Kraft asked about whether they hadn't done this with stamina potions, so they were faster than a running horse at full gallop. For an ordinary person, such a journey would probably take about a month. The guy asked if he had been there. The knight confirmed and added that they had tried to get as close as possible, trying to remain unnoticed. There was a dragon. The people in the room were very surprised. No feathers, a green body. It seemed to be a green dragon. Kraft said that they were lucky that he couldn't fly. In turn, there are rumors that he has both strong defense and strength. Everything becomes easier if they know about their enemy. The boy wanted to make sure of something. Kyle asked if they were already discussing how to defeat him. Kraft responded something like that. They discuss a plan to defeat the dragon. Kyle said that it was too dangerous. It was a dragon. Why would they need to fight it? The hero replied that they needed a lot of these flowers. This is an ingredient for creating a medicine that can cure Kyle, an elixir. Kraft said that they would defeat the dragon and create an elixir with the help of this flower and cure Kyle's illness. The knight was happy that they would finally be able to cure Mr. Kyle's illness. However, Kyle said that the hero would not be able to do this. He won't let that happen. Put himself in such danger because of him, he doesn't agree with that plan. Kraft expected him to say something like that. Kyle said that it goes without saying. After all, they risk their lives for this. The girl says that she is ready to sacrifice her life for him. The young man knows it. However, he does not know how to treat his illness if it means putting others at risk. If something happens to them, he will not be able to forgive himself. Kraft said he is an excellent and caring leader. But for his information, it is not only for his own benefit. The young man did not understand what the hero was talking about. He asked him to look at the map. The dragon's lair is located right where they plan to build the road. This settlement has a number of tasks ahead of it. But the most important one is the construction of a road connecting the city, especially since the currently planned route will allow them to connect with 2 neighboring countries. The settlement will not be able to achieve this unless they deal with the dragon. But could they really defeat the dragon? Even an entire army would prefer to avoid meeting just one. Kraft replied that they had a chance. Many monster fighting experts have gathered here. This was the original reason why he founded the Adventurers Guild here. They have enough fighting power. They also have healing potions and hard mithril equipment. There shouldn't be any serious problems. Alfred agreed with the hero. Kyle won't let that happen. Suddenly, Kraft said that he had another reason. If they create 2 elixirs and present one to Margrave Baylord, wouldn't that be a great achievement for Kyle? Alfred and the girl repeated the hero's words about the ghostly medicine and the offering. Kyle looked at them. They were encouraged by the words that this would be a great achievement for Mr. Kyle. The boy stood in despair. He clenched his fists, which were shaking. He asked them to wait. Kraft said that he could create this elixir, and it would cure Kyle and would be an unheard-of achievement. Alfred and the girl agreed with the guy's plan and said that they would help him in any way they could. Kyle asked them to wait. He jumped out in front of them and told them not to speak as they pleased. This is not what he wants. He does not need merit or medicine. Everyone can suffer because of him. He does not want that. He can't stand it. He asks them not to risk their lives for him. The boy cried loudly. The child's servants were worried about him. Kraft decided to apologize to Kyle for making him worry. He patted him on the head and said that he would show him their secret plan. They went outside. The hero asked Jotaro about the preparations. He replied that everything was ready. It shouldn't be a problem with such a large space. He could begin. Lifan understood what the boy intended to do. He stopped her and said that this is what she thinks, but he tested it many times with Jotaro. This is to calm Kyle down. He asks the girl to understand. Kraft told Kyle to watch carefully. He would be shocked. Jotaro pulled the bowstring. And then he fired. There was an explosion. People are shocked that he was able to produce such an explosion with a bow and arrow. The hero asks the boy if he remembers the magical explosion. He replies that he remembers the boy mentioning it in the report. This time, they attached an improved version to an arrow. Even if they can't plant it in the right place, they can just shoot the arrow there. In addition, the hard mithril bows that Lifan made can fire powerful shots even with minimal force. Putting these 2 factors together, the enemy will not be able to get close, and they will be able to fire powerful shots from afar. Kyle said that it sounds like an incredible weapon. The knight is confident that they have a chance. Belzia asks the master for permission to join the battle. 86. Alfred also asks for permission. The knights desperately ask the boy. He doubts. Kraft tells the child to give in. They love him very much. And they are not the only ones. In fact, everyone in the village knows about his illness. Everyone is constantly trying to find something that can help him. No one wants to mention it because it would be a shame if they failed. Everyone is here to help him. Kraft begged Kyle to let them save him. The boy burst into tears. He said that he had shown himself in a shameful way. He lost his composure because he loved them all so much. He was afraid. His judgment could decide whether they would live or die. But as the one in charge of the village, he will also become stronger. He gives them his permission. And in return, they must promise to return safe and sound. They promised. At this point, their preparations were complete. And so, the day came to set out to destroy the dragon. When Kraft went outside, he saw many people. He asked if all the adventurers had come for the quest to destroy the dragon. The knight replied that simply participating in it would bring a lot of glory. Besides, they're just happy to help both him and Kyle. It all became clear to Kraft. They all look determined. He himself understands it. The joy of being able to help someone in need. Lifan asks the boy to leave the protection of the village to them. He replied that he was counting on them. Suddenly, the guy turned around. Mena held him by the cloak. The young man asked her what had happened. She replied that she would wait for him and asked him to return safe and sound. The young man stroked her head and said that everything was fine and he would definitely return. The adventurers decided to set off, and so, the group set off to defeat the dragon. The adventurer watched the dragon through binoculars. They were shocked. The green dragon was huge. Even at such a distance, his greatness can be felt. Although the knight has seen him before, he is frightening now. He turned to Kraft and asked if everything was ready. He responded positively and said that they could begin. The guy ordered all the adventurers to listen. They begin the first phase of their plan. He says that if they fail, they should be released immediately. They should not fight if they feel that their strength is not enough. They began their attack on the dragon. The dragon noticed the adventurers. Redok shouted that they were starting. They rushed to the attack with shouts. The knight said that they were coming too. Belcia answered what she understood. The guy used Soaring Strike. Belcia used Swift Skypiercer. Other adventurers also attacked the dragon. The crowd of adventurers was hostile to the dragon. The girl noticed that the dragon was bleeding. The knight shouts at them to continue in the same spirit. Suddenly, the dragon raised its head up. Kraft noticed this and said that the dragon was releasing its breath. The protagonist stepped forward and stood in front of the fire. He sat down on the ground and summoned the great earthen rampart. The creature appeared behind the wall. Kraft remembers the moment when he voiced their plan. Faced with his breath, the hero uses protective magic. Once the dragon is surrounded, the flames will reflect off the walls and envelop the dragon. The wall began to crack. The hero hissed and said that it would not last long. The knight shouted to everyone to prepare explosives. They aimed arrows at the dragon and opened fire. There was an explosion, and the dragon began to scream. He was in pain. Belcia shouted that they were doing well. The creature was weakening. The knight screams that everyone kept putting pressure on him. They must all attack without holding back. Suddenly, the dragon straightened up and screamed. A bright light illuminated the adventurers. They don't understand what's happening. The dragon's horns suddenly glow. This must be his attack. Everyone should prepare. However, nothing happened. The dragon simply stood with its head raised to the sky. Kraft understands that nothing happened. Then what was the purpose of this magic circle? Someone suggested that it was an empty threat. Someone said that it was scary and prepared to attack again. However, the arrow did not pass. It was stopped by some barrier. One of the magicians also decided to attack, but his magic also dissipated. The spell didn't work either. Kraft began to analyze it all. He realized that this was protective magic. The hero shouted to Redok that this light probably nullifies all magic, including the magic explosion. If this is true, then it is unknown what else it is capable of. Redok said that they needed to retreat. Suddenly, the dragon stirred. He began to gather his breath. Kraft understands that the great earthen rampart will not be able to cover them from such a distance. He kept shouting for them to run. The guy remembered what the guys said about how they were counting on him. He wouldn't let them die. Kraft turned to Redok and Bep. He told them to impress him with their skills. They don't have time to explain. 150. Speed boost and shoulder grab hit the guy in the back. He screamed. Then he rolled on the ground and the dragon began to release its breath. Kraft landed and began using Great Earthshaft again. A huge wall emerged from the ground and stopped the dragon's flames. The hero barely managed to pull it off. However, they cannot defeat him. It is useless. They won't be able to defeat the dragon. Should they retreat? They will suffer losses if they run. Belcia turned to the hero. She asked about the dragon's weaknesses. If we take away his horns, he might no longer be able to neutralize magic. The girl asked the boy to try and somehow bend his head to the ground. The young man was taken aback and did not understand the knight. She said that she, Belcia Fomalhaut, would try to do this. Belcia asked the boy to bend the dragon's head to the ground. she would cut off the dragon's horn. The young man thinks that the girl asks him to do this, but the dragon nullifies all his magic. The girl has already rushed to attack. The guy did not understand what to do. Then he noticed an arrow with explosives. He remembered the moment when the dragon was shot. Then the arrow still hit, although there was no explosion. Magic explosives are a magical attack. The attack should have been completely blocked. Then physical attacks still work. Then they have a chance. But the guy doubted. Redak called out to the hero. He said that if there is any chance, you need to take advantage of it. Otherwise, everything will only get worse. He was ready to sacrifice himself from the very beginning. It was worth it to defeat the dragon. The young man looked at his fighting comrades, clenched his fist, and asked them for forgiveness. He shouted to them that it was just one breath. They had to endure his breath until the very end. The comrades agreed. He's counting on them all. At that moment, he'll gather all his magic. Now that I think about it, he and Bardak can still use magic, which means there's a weakness in nullifying dragon magic. It works within a limited radius. In that case, they have a chance. Radoka shouted that the dragon was preparing to breathe fire. The knights will stand to the end. Bardak and Kraft use different skills, namely, protection from fire and heat, and Great Earthen Shield. They support each other in the fight against the dragon. The creature released fire. It was getting closer and closer to the heroes. They held their fire as best they could. Even with the full might of Redok's group, it was a powerful attack. Bardak called Kraft and approached him. Kraft hit him. Then he apologized and asked his comrades about their condition. Silhouettes of adventurers emerged from the smoke screen. Kraft called them. They still held out. One of the girls noticed that the dragon was preparing to take another breath. The hero said that it was too late. There was a huge stone hovering above the dragon. The guy said that this was an opportunity that everyone had given him, and he's not going to let her go. The guy drops the rock on the dragon. A huge boulder fell on the dragon. If magic doesn't work, make a shepherd with a cobblestone. The creature bowed its head. Kraft shouted at Belcia to act now, and threw her a potion. She deftly caught it and drank it. This is a special potion that allows you to go beyond human capabilities for a short time. This is a breakthrough potion, so it should work. The girl rose high into the sky, and the next moment cut off the dragon's horns. He began to roar in pain, and foam came out of his mouth. The girl began to fall. The boy shouted her name, but she told him not to worry about her and to finish with the dragon. Kraft announced that the defense was down. Now everyone can attack with everything they have. The adventurers have resumed their attacks. This is the end now. Kraft used Heavenly Thunderclap, and Redak used Great Boulder Smash. The dragon knew that this was the end. The fight continued. The villagers stood and waited for the heroes to return. Seeing their crumpled appearance, they thought that they had not been able to win. Kraft reported that they had returned. Kyle ran to hug the guy and said how glad he was that the hero was alive. The young man was taken aback by such actions. Then Lifan threw herself into his arms. She told him that he had been through so much. It was good that he was able to return home. He wanted to make a report, but these two burst into tears and said that it didn't matter. He was alive, the rest didn't matter. And apparently he didn't lose anyone. Retreat is also an act of courage. They fought with honor. The hero decided that it would be faster to show them than to explain. He took the proof of their victory from the vault. A dragon's head fell out. Kraft said it was too heavy, so the hero put it in his vault. People were shocked. Lifan fainted from horror. The hero realized that it was too unexpected for them. He apologized for it. He didn't think it would end like this. The display of the dragon's head in the square made Lifan very angry. She doesn't want to say it, but asks the guy to put himself in her place and imagine from the outside. Kraft, who was kneeling at the time, apologized. The young man did not think that everyone would be so surprised. Suddenly, Mina came up to him and sat on his knees. The hero tried to ask her to move away, as his legs were about to go numb. But the guy thought that the girl with the sweet look asked him if she couldn't sit on his lap. The hero gave in and allowed her to continue sitting. Kyle suggested that he gather his thoughts and talk about what happened. Kraft agreed. First, he decided to talk about the battle. As you could see, they were able to defeat the dragon without any losses. Although the equipment was seriously damaged, Lifan was surprised that they won without losses, and against a dragon at that. They also completed the main task and collected enough ambrosia flowers and other rare herbs. Of course, defeating the dragon was the main goal. The herbs were secondary. They also found many valuable ores and magic items. Kyle pointed out that if they were so valuable, adventurers would want to get them. He wanted to leave the discussion with the guild to Lifan. She said that she would take care of it. Kraft said that Reddick could tell the details of the battle. As the hero continued his story, Mina settled comfortably on his lap. In the evening, the hero stood by the sign, "He did it, celebration of victory over the dragon." The young man did not understand what kind of name this was. One of the adventurers said that everyone helped with the decorations. In the center lay the head of a dragon. Kraft thought that people were preparing a dark ritual. Kyle came on stage and asked for people's attention. He said that thanks to everyone's efforts, they had managed to rid the borders of one of the horrors that lived here. Until now, this place was called the Monster Lands. Countless attempts to settle here ended in failure. However, thanks to defeating the dragon, they can safely live on a larger territory than before. To the settlers who accomplished this great deed, the adventurers and merchants, and to all the residents of Golden Dawn Village, he expresses his sincere gratitude. The boy suggests celebrating the victory over the dragon without further ado. He raised his glass and offered to drink. All the villagers are having fun in their own way. Some are drinking. They are trying to get someone drunk. Suddenly, an unknown person calls out to the hero. It was Radoka. He asked his comrade if he had already written it. He replied that he had not gotten drunk. The knight became interested in the reason for this. The reason they were able to succeed this time was undoubtedly because of him. Kraft says he simply did what he could. Reddock says he prepared the case, the adventurers, and the gear, all thanks to his careful planning. It's all because of one thing. He looked at his hand where some sign was depicted. Kraft couldn't thank her enough. Reddick agreed, but he still could have come up with something even without this cross. It's hard to imagine what exactly, of course, but for example, a gathering of adventurers. He would have succeeded without him. The knight was right. The hero looked at Kyle, who was drinking and having fun with the residents, and said that he really achieved this on his own. So, as Reddick said, this time, everything worked out thanks to him. Kraft was sitting on the grass and looking at the night sky. Suddenly, someone approached him. It was Li Fan. The hero said that he had drunk too much. The girl laughed and sat down next to him. She looked into the distance and asked the boy about how now that the dragon was gone, the village would no longer be attacked. The young man looked at the girl in surprise and confirmed her words. Then he added that at the very least, they had significantly reduced the chances of this happening. The girl was very happy about this. Finally, it was all over. After some time, the girl leaned against the guy and fell asleep. She cried and called for her mom and dad in her sleep. The hero continued to sit, not wanting to disturb his friend's sleep. A few days later, Kraft announced that the elixir was finally ready. A small jar stood in front of Kyle and Mina. The boy asked if it was cream. The boy confirmed it. And then he said that he should eat it. He needed to take it by mouth. Alfred and Belcia were shocked by such a statement. The hero explains that Kyle's disease is congenital, so it is applied from the inside. His cross said so. Belcia warned the guy about the possible consequences of failure. Kyle took a spoon with cream and put it in his mouth. Alfred and Belcia immediately pounced on him with questions about his well-being. The hero asked them to calm down. The boy started to say that now there was nothing special, just sweet, but suddenly he felt something. His knights became worried. Could it really have gotten even worse? Tears started flowing from the boy's eyes. No one understood what was happening. Kyle said that the pain and success in his heart came, as if they had never been. All of this is gone. The boy began to cry loudly. Belcia went to him and hugged him, trying to calm him down. She said that she believed with all her heart that this day would come. She was very happy. Alfred also shed a tear. The hero decided to leave the room so as not to interfere. Alfred followed him. The man bowed and thanked the boy for curing Mr. Kyle. He asked what he should do to repay him. Charity alone was not enough. The hero is glad that the medicine worked without problems. The knight said that it was truly a wonderful medicine. However, even though he should be glad that the master had recovered, if only they had more of this medicine, at least one more bottle, 256. Then Mr. Kyle would certainly be completely healthy. That would be the best outcome. Kraft said that there is still a cure. There's still plenty of elixir. The man was in shock. The young man showed him everything he had. This was made from the materials collected after defeating the dragon. 129 bottles of Sura, a legendary drink that briefly increases abilities. 73 bottles of Amrita, one bottle of which can make you a year younger, and also 47 bottles of elixir. Kyle asked if it was wrong. He felt like the tears were in vain. Belcia scolded the hero, and he said that he just went a little overboard. All these are rare potions. If they sell them in the city, they will become richer. Kraft said that they would get into trouble anyway, so he suggested that they hand it all over to His Excellency, Margrave Baylord. Ulfried, Belcia, and Kyle were surprised. Baylord Margrave, Kyle's father, sat at his desk, looking over papers. His eldest son turned to him. The man greeted Zaid and said that he had just received a message from Kyle. Zaid thought that Kyle was speaking so grandly, but he himself was probably already up to his ears in problems with the settlement. The young man asked if his brother was already in tears. Baylord said that he was not. He said that Kyle had sent something incredible. The guy picked up what his brother had sent and was surprised. They managed to defeat the dragon and they wished to give the legendary elixir, made from the collected herbs, to the Margrave. They will soon arrive at the Margrave's territory. Kraft patted Kyle on the shift and invited him to show them what they had accomplished. The boy was inspired and agreed. Kraft said that a magnificent view opened up before them. It had been a long time since he had been in Gandhara. Kyle realized that his older brother had been there before. Everyone was surprised that the boy called the hero his older brother. Kyle realized what a mistake he had made and apologized to the hero. He had promised not to say that to anyone else. Belcia looked at the guy with a murderous look. The young man began to justify himself and say that the girl had misunderstood everything. The hero remembers the moment when Kyle offered him to become his older brother. Belcia yells at the guy and tells him that he should know his limits and give up this title. They were approaching the city where the Margrave lives. It is full of people and knowledge. Kyle said that the capital is more densely populated than this city. The gates are always open because so many people pass through them, and that means there is no toll. The hunter says that if he had known this, he would have come here earlier. The boy offered to let him look around while they were here. Kraft had wondered about this before, but he simply barged in uninvited, and sat down next to the nobleman as if nothing had happened. This guy surprises me every time. The hero must learn to be as impudent as he already is, Belcia said. The heroes got out of the carriage. The guards asked if they were related to Margrave Baylord. Kraft asked who they were. The girl answered that they were the gate guards. Ulfried answered the guard's question in the affirmative. The guard suggested that they take another route, as the main street was too crowded. Ulfried thanked them, and the next moment, Kyle appeared from the carriage and also thanked the men. Everyone was surprised by this. The guards recognized Mr. Kyle and greeted him. They noticed that the gentleman was in good health. He replied that, fortunately, he was now all right. The men congratulated him. The country air must have done him good. Ulfried told them that it was only a short return. The guards understood everything and replied that they would keep everything a strict secret. The carriage with the heroes moved forward. The hunter really liked these views. They arrived at Kyle's house. The boy said that he had not been inside very often. As a child, he had been moved to a country residence. The hunter concluded that nobles did not return to their homes. Li Fan shouted at the boy. Kyle told them not to pay attention. He would be able to give a good report to his father thanks to everyone present, for which he was grateful to everyone. The hunter said that the boy was very cute. Belcia confirmed it, and Kraft thought that Belzia's inner voice was leaking out. Li Fan suggested going inside. The hero thought that they probably shouldn't have entered the ruler's territory in a carriage. The young man asked Mina to get up from her knees. She didn't want to do it. Li Fan said that she was starting to like the guy. The young man did not understand why she was so intractable then. The gates opened. The crew entered the territory. The heroes were delighted with these possessions. Someone was watching them from their windows. It was Zaid and Fraten. The heroes were inside the mansion and waiting. In front of them sat Margrave Baylord. Zaid, the second son, and Fraten, the eldest son. The man greeted them. The Margrave said that Kyle had sent an interesting answer. Did he really come here to explain himself? The young man confirmed this. He wanted a direct meeting because he had a lot to tell. Baylord asked to talk about potions first. Kyle turned to Kraft and asked him to show him the potions. The hero asked about him just dumping them, and then he realized that he had screwed up his words. He is in front of a nobleman, quite naturally nervous. The hero took out 44 bottles of elixir, 12 9 suras, and 73 amrita. Kyle's family members were surprised. He brought unfathomable things, and in unfathomable quantities. Kyle said that it was too much for him alone, so he decided it would be better to give it to his father. The man was sure it wasn't easy to cope with this. He had achieved something significant. He should be more proud of himself. Kyle thanked his father. The Margrave said that it would be wise to present some of this to His Majesty. If they sold it all on the market, the economy would simply collapse. Now about killing the dragon. Although the potions are circumstantial evidence, does he have any direct evidence? Kyle said that they took the dragon's head with them. The man was surprised and said that they didn't have a cart with them. All because it is in Kraft's special storage. The boy pointed at the hero. He scratched his head in embarrassment. The second son doubted the truth of these words. Zaid said that everything was clear to him now. By dragon, he actually meant just a lizard. Apparently, Kyle learned to brag like an aristocrat. Kraft remembered that usually a special storage facility could not accommodate such large items. Margrave suggested going to the back garden. Kyle said that it would be too small. One of the sons suggested using the front garden that people often pass by. If it is really that big, then it will please the common people. As always, Zed is great at pissing people off. Alfred and Belcia would have cut him down already if he weren't Kyle's brother. Kraft asked permission to say something to the Margrave. He said that it would not be enough anyway. They would crush all the flower beds. Zed started laughing. And then he said that there were no problems with that. Baylord allowed them to do it there. The young man thanked the man. Kraft went outside to the front garden where he must free the dragon's head. The Count's family watched from the window. The young man noticed this and exhaled. The guy activated special magic. It was something like a loudspeaker. The young man asked passersby to pay attention to him. Lifan was surprised that she could clearly hear the boy's voice. The hero tells that recently the third son of the Margrave, Lord Kyle Baylord, accomplished a great feat. Not only did he successfully establish himself in the Monsterlands, but thanks to the excellent leadership and unity he brought, they were able to defeat the terrifying monster. However, it would be difficult to believe his words alone, so he told them to see the results for themselves. And they must give praise to Kyle, the young and promising ruler. And the next moment he pulled out the dragon's head. The head was so huge that it barely fit in the front garden. Everyone was shocked. People started praising Mr. Kyle. This is the biggest monster he has ever seen. Mr. Kyle is amazing. The man is glad that he is on their side. The guy realized that they are all excited. He looked towards Kyle's friends and family. Zed's mouth was open in surprise, and Belcia and Lifan made the expression they might make after he overdid something yet again. The young man realized that he had screwed up again. People were trying to get closer to look at the dragon's head. The guards were trying to line people up. They were shouting that people could look, but they couldn't stand still. The butler escorted the hero to the right place. Kraft heard what the guards were saying about how they couldn't get this under control. They would have appreciated advance notice. More work for them. The guy was very sorry. The Margrave's family was having dinner. The hero joined them. One of the sons suggested introducing a fee for viewing the dragon's head as a tourist attraction. Baylord replied that if they did it without preparation, the effect would be like a powder keg. Besides, it was better not to spread this achievement too much. The man decided to leave the consequences to Fomalhaut. Kraft understood which Fomalhaut they were talking about. Belcia looked away at that moment. She was clearly displeased. The father told Kyle that he had done a great job taking care of the dragon. The man also wanted to thank those who had supported Kyle. The report said that the population of the settlement had already reached 1,000 people. The boy said that they did not have enough housing. They can't take any more new arrivals. The man said that he had exceeded all his expectations. Suddenly, screams were heard. The door to the dining room opened abruptly. Everyone present turned their heads. Two girls entered the room. They apologized for the intrusion. The Margrave turned to Vela and Rayla and said that they had an important conversation. Vela replied that she knew it and giggled. Although perhaps the woman has no place in this dialogue, she wants to express her opinion. Kyle called Kraft. He told the guy that this was his former second lover, now his first wife Vela, and her daughter Rayla. She is Zaid's mother. The woman said that there was nothing wrong with this. The man agreed. Vela said that Kyle's achievements were truly magnificent. The boy blushed and looked surprised. He thanked the woman. Kraft did not understand why the boy seemed happier than when his father praised him. But the new generation grew up so fast. Isn't it too much for Kyle? Although there is some truth to this, the woman would not say so. Fortunately, the new village is not far from Zaid's territory. He had already demonstrated his ability to govern. Vela offered to hand over the settlement to Zaid. Everyone was very surprised by this statement. Although on paper his territory is nearby, there is a huge territory between them. It goes beyond all common sense. Vela went on to say that thanks to the medicine, Kyle had overcome his illness and was free of his innate weakness. Now, wouldn't it be better for Kyle to help him here in Gandhara? Her arguments sound reasonable, but she is simply abusing her power to help her own son. Isn't that obvious? Zed confirmed his mother's words. Kraft realized that they were planning to reap the benefits of Kyle. Zed said that he had recommended him for settlement, but his illness was gone. He no longer had to worry. He can leave the rest to his brother. The young man burst into laughter. Fratton decided to suggest something. In addition to Mother's suggestion, why not leave this settlement to Zed and also give Kyle a new one? The Margrave ordered the butler to bring the map. It was spread out on the table. Lifon was surprised by the good detail of the map. Kraft thought, shouldn't this be a secret weapon of the aristocrats? Surely it can show them? Fratton began to look for a better place for Kyle. He pointed to a place near where the dragon was. This area is close to the Dubatan Empire, and the Zevias Federation is located on this side of the mountain range. In addition, there are several minor nations near these three countries. This is an ideal area for development. It seems Kyle has a talent for creating settlements. Why not try sending him there? Vela turned to Fratton. She asked him if he thought her son was incapable of accomplishing this task. He replied that even for Zaid to accomplish this, in addition to obtaining a new settlement, would be too much. Kyle will go there simply to establish a new settlement, as before. Rayla said that her brother's proposal was excellent. If they both start at the same time, wouldn't that finally show who's the best? There was silence in the room. The Margrave was serious. Vela said that maybe this would be Kyle's chance to show that it wasn't just luck. Kraft got mad. He was angry that they doubted Kyle. However, the boy agreed to this proposal. Alfred, Dulcia, and Lifon are shocked. Zed laughed and said that his brother has become so smart. However, Kyle has two requests. First, he wants to keep the name Golden Dawn. His brother chuckled. His father asked about the second condition. Starting with Kraft, he had been through a lot with the people in this village. So Kyle wants to take anyone who wants to move with him. Usually, peasants cannot move from the area they live in. Settlements like theirs are an exception. Vela said that she would not allow them to take any resources or property out of the village. This outraged Kyle. He said that it was too much. They couldn't go to a new area without resources. The woman said that then she wouldn't give permission for either. The boy understood everything and asked in return to allow guilds and individuals to take their own goods with them. Baylord asked if this was really okay with Kyle, who confirmed it. Zed said that everything was decided. Kyle finally learned to behave like an aristocrat. Kraft whispered to Kyle why he agreed. He just winked. At this point, the meeting ended. However, the Margrave called Kraft and said that he wanted to talk to him alone and asked him to come into this room later. The young man was taken aback. After some time, Kraft came to the meeting place. He was nervous. Baylord told him to sit down. The boy drank tea under the Margrave's watchful gaze and was nervous. He was very scared. He couldn't cope with this tension. He mentally asked the Margrave to say something. He suddenly said a phrase about being a twilight alchemist. The man had heard that he simply knew a lot about medicine, but it seemed that he was also quite skilled. The young man thanked him. Baylord then asked if the boy had heard of Jarvel Galion. Javril is the greatest alchemist in the country. She revolutionized fertilizers and is a famous doctor. The hero said that she is a well-known alchemist. He also read many of her books. He imagined her image in his head. Margrave said that Jarvel was working for Zaid, and it seemed she wanted to talk to him. The hero didn't understand why he of all people. Baylord can point out the location of her mansion. Kraft decided to leave at that. He thought about how nervous he was, and suddenly the Margrave asked the boy to take care of Kyle. The young man was surprised, turned around and agreed. After some time, Kraft arrived at the Jarvel mansion. It was a gloomy place. Suddenly, a statue standing nearby came to life and showed the guy the way. Kraft was amazed. This is a man-made monster. This requires high-level alchemy. Jarvel is capable of anything. The statue informed the mistress that she had brought Mr. Kraft. Then she said that he was late and told her to take him here. The guy said hello, and then was very surprised to see Jarvel. She turned around and said that she was the one and only, and her name was Javril. The young man was amazed that she was a little girl. The little girl introduced herself as Javril. She asked if the boy standing in front of her was Kraft. The boy confirmed it. His name is Kraft Walken. He knows about her because of her reputation. He also studied her works. He is so happy to meet her. The guy grabbed her hands. Realizing what he had done, the young man apologized, justifying his actions by saying that he was simply too happy. Javriel noted that he understood some things, despite his young age. Suddenly the boy noticed something. It was the creation of Master Jarvel, an item that purifies river water. It is called Ranbik. Kraft had never seen him in person before. The girl noted that he seemed to have studied quite well. He had an eye for such things. The guy thanked the girl. The knowledge from her books was invaluable in preparing medicines. He would be the happiest man if she made him her apprentice. The girl thought for a moment, and then said the boy's name. He shuddered. Javriel said that, as a special favor, she would make him her apprentice. But there is one condition. She heard from His Excellencies that he created a miracle cure that cured Mr. Kyle. To make sure he was worthy of being her apprentice, she needed to know how to make it. Kraft said he always had it with him and handed the recipe to the girl. She was taken aback. She was shocked that he just walked around with it in his pocket. She said that she was going to read it now. She began studying the recipe and then announced that they would take him on as their student. Kraft sincerely thanked the teacher. However, although he would like to live close to here and study with her, he must live in the settlement. Javriel remembered that he was bound by a contract with the guild. She also worked under Mr. Zed with certain conditions and was currently living on his territory. The guy asked if this meant that she would be moving too. Kraft explained everything to the girl. She grabbed her head and said that Mr. Zed needed to go to the Golden Dawn settlement. That was all she needed. The hero realized that the teacher was having a hard time too. He had a contract with the guild, not Mr. Kyle, so he probably wouldn't be able to move, but he still wanted to follow him. Javriel suggested they discuss it with the guild. If negotiations ultimately went south, then she could put in a good word for him. The boy was inspired. He was surprised at how deeply the girl cared for her student. And Javriel at this time was thinking about how much he had already helped her with her research. This was nothing compared to that. Taking another look at the guy's recipe, she asked him if he hadn't published it yet. He looked at her questioningly. And then he asked what it meant. She was surprised that he had never heard of academies. He shares his knowledge and spreads it around the world. She was involved in helping to create such a system. So he doesn't know how to formulate or present his work. The young man confirmed this. She suggested writing about him. But then she would have to list herself as a co-author too. Even if he was furious that she would be listed as a co-author on his paper, it was all for the sake of humanity. Kraft approached her and asked if she was really ready to be his co-author. He really deserved to be given such an honor. Javriel said that she was not against it. The young man began to thank her fervently and asked her to do it. The alchemist wondered if he was incapable of suspecting others. She felt worse and worse about it. 40. The next day, Lifan wakes up the guy. He stood up and apologized to her. He had not slept all night because he had been reading a book that the teacher had given him. Suddenly, the girl was surprised and blushed. She asked why he was naked. He asked her not to panic. It was just the upper part of her body. No, the panties needed to be disposed of somewhere too. He wasn't sleeping in his clothes on this magnificent bed. The boy asked her to turn away so he could get dressed. Lifan told him to hurry up. Mina was sitting on the chair where his clothes lay. The guy asked her to move. However, she did not make any movements, so the guy lifted her up and told her that she should not sit on his clothes. Having dressed, the young man asked Lifan about the reason for her visit. She grabbed his cloak and dragged him somewhere. Suddenly, someone stood in front of them and asked if they were heading to the guild. It was Belcia. She said that she would go with them. The hero assumed that she was bored. The girl was indignant. Then the young man asked about Kyle's protection. She answered that whoever would dare to attack His Excellency's mansion. Lifan said that the girl was obviously protecting him. If only he really understood his importance. But the hero seriously doesn't understand. He is the one who made 43 bottles of the legendary potion. If so, the three of them could enjoy a nice date. Flowers, holding hands, and all that. Belcia shouted that it wasn't a date and that he wasn't much of a joker. When he arrived in the city, the young man noticed that there were almost no demi-humans here. Demi-humans is a term that refers to intelligent species that are not human. The knight asked him what he knew about demi-humans. He replied that he grew up in an orphanage where there were many half-human children. And Lifan is a halfling. Belcia always forgets this because she looks so normal. There are people who discriminate against them, and most people in the barracks do not like having fur around. She thinks that it is a problem of clashes between new and old ideas. Lifan said that she knows many demi-humans. The young man said that the girl seems like a person who can get along with anyone. She is like their mascot. The girl was surprised by the way the guy called her. The hero sensed trouble and drew the girl's attention to a meat skewer nearby. He said that he would treat them. Lifan said that she had a feeling that he was trying to distract her from the pressing problem. The hero said that she thought so and went to buy a meat skewer. He gave Belcia 1 kebab and Lifan 2. She asked why only she had 2. He had 1 in his hands. He answered that she had to eat a lot, unlike Belcia. The girl started crying and said that he had no sense of delicacy at all. Just like this morning. She reminded him that she was an adult too. The guy offered to take her second skewer if she didn't eat it. She said that she would eat. She is a glutton after all. Belcia told the guy that he would never be popular. They came to the Gandhar Adventurers Guild. Lifan and Kraft were surprised to see the guild leader. He called their names. He said that it was nice to see them in good health. Lifan said that they hadn't seen each other for a long time, and the hero asked what he was doing here. He answered that it was all thanks to the guy. He was promoted and appointed as the guildmaster of the city, the new guildmaster and regional adventurer headquarters. The young man didn't quite understand, but congratulated his boss. So, as the report said, all the medicines were handed over to the authorities. The hero confirmed it. He thought it would be the best decision. The man agreed. If he misused them, there would be problems. He even dealt with the dragon. A truly magnificent job. The man placed 2 bags of coins in front of them and said that this was a special reward for the 2 of them. The guy was surprised by such a sum and asked if they really could have so much. He answered that he was more worried that he could complain about such a paltry sum for everything he had done for them. It was too little for such an excellent alchemist. If there is anything he can do for him, he only needs to say so. He will try to do everything in his power. Kraft said he had one request in that case. Although it may seem unreasonable, he would like to change his contract. His contract binds him to the border village. Because of this, he will not be able to go to the new settlement. He wants to go with Kyle. Kraft announces that he wants to go with Kyle. He knows it's unreasonable, but he still wants it. The guild leader told him that he can stay with Kyle. The boy was confused. For that matter, why did he think that he would be the only one to stay? The young man explains that his contract states that as a member of the guild, he must stay in a certain area assigned to him. The man asks Lifan to explain it to him. According to the contract, he must stay in the settlement for a long time, but it ties him to the name of the settlement. That is, it turns out that even if he did not want to, he is obliged to follow Mr. Kyle. For him and the village, the Golden Dawn. Lifan said that Mr. Kyle would never abandon him. The guy remembered what he had said a minute ago and blushed. This was exactly what he wanted to talk about. The man noted that the young man was still young. Kraft asked him to be quiet. The guild leader told the boy not to worry. No one wants to separate him from Mr. Kyle. Thus, his last worries quietly disappeared. After the guild, the heroes decided to go to the orphanage. The young man recalled that he himself grew up in an orphanage. After all this time, he was still being run by the church. So he wanted to go just out of curiosity. Suddenly, he saw the children speaking badly about the half-humans, and they decided to throw stones at them. The half-humans tried to protect each other, but Kraft used rainbow barrier in time. Stones flew off the emerging wall, and they hit those who threw them. The kids realized that this was a magical barrier. It wasn't fun. Suddenly they noticed Kraft, who was looking at them menacingly. His look indicated that the children had completely lost their fear. The children ran away, and the young man did not understand what kind of life this was. Wherever he went, he would definitely encounter similar situations. He approached the half-humans and asked about their condition, and he noted that it was good that he had accidentally ended up here. However, the children were more interested in the shining wall. They said that it was very cool. The boy was embarrassed. The children asked if this old man was a magician. The hero was shocked that he was called an old man. He was only 20 years old. Then a girl appeared and asked the guys what that noise was. Then she looked at the boy and recognized him as Kraft. And the boy recognized Azul. Belcia asked if they knew each other. He replied that they grew up together. The guy asked her what she was doing there. She replied that his face had become a little angrier, and she hadn't grown at all. The girl didn't understand that he meant it. Kraft said that she had misunderstood him. The guy realized from her clothes that she had become a priest's apprentice. The hero was surprised. Lifan said that it was incredibly difficult for half-humans. Azul asked who was with you. Lifan introduced herself. Belcia is a bodyguard. They came with him to make a donation. Azul was delighted and told them to follow her. She would make tea for them. The heroes refused. The shelter was in a deplorable state. It's more of a ruin than a shelter. Azul apologized for the view. The whole building is too old. The place is so run down that even his money isn't enough to fix it. The kids asked Kraft to show his magic again. Lifan leaned over to the children and asked how old they were. They said that she was only a little older than them. She shouldn't act like an adult like them. They called her short. The girl got angry and started screaming that maybe she looks like that, but she is much older than them. The children started running away from her. Belcia did not understand what was happening. Then one of the girls came up to the knight. She saw a real sword and called Belcia cute. She blushed. Kraft noted that the girl was already at the age when you pay attention to such things. The knight shouted at the children not to get involved with adults. Azul brought food and said that the young man was doing well with children. The girl told about how she was promoted for her hard work. She gave everything she had to help the parish priest. Kraft recalls that as a child she was a real tomboy. He planned to leave after the donation, but he wants to help somehow. Lifan offered to help with the repairs here. Azul refused and said that the shelter would be closed very soon. The heroes were surprised. So that's the thing. It's a common story. The church is a compassionate institution, but orphanages are expensive and of little use. If they can't raise enough money, they close. The girl said they found new places for the children, but they will all be separated. The children started saying that they won't go anywhere. They want to stay with Azul. The girl asks the children not to be selfish. But they don't want to part with everyone. They like being with Azul. They cry. They don't understand why they can't stay with Azul. She shakes and asks them for forgiveness. She also wants to stay with them all, but she can't seem to protect them all. As a half-human and a priest's apprentice, the best she can do is find them new homes. She tried to hold back her tears and continue to apologize to the children. Kraft thought for a moment, and then asked the children if they were ready to go to distant lands and work for a new home, in order to stay with Azul. They said that they would go after her wherever needed and do everything in their power. This was the answer the guy was expecting. Lifan asked if the guy really had a plan. He confirmed it and said that he would not let them be separated. He would protect them. The day of departure to the village of Golden Dawn. Azul and the children approached the estate where Kyle and Kraft were standing. The girl apologized for the delay. Packing things took a long time. One of the children says that he did not foresee that it would turn out like this. He asks the girl to act more proudly. After all, she is the chief priest of the new settlement and the great leader of the orphanage. The boy asked the hero how he managed it. He responded that Kyle first invited the church and the orphanage to their settlement. There was no church there, so they quickly accepted the offer. Then Kyle wrote a letter of recommendation for Azul. Given the impetus from his letter, the church moved forward and decided to promote Azul. The cardinal then intervened and said that this was also due to Azul's hard work up until now. The church had already abolished discrimination against demi-humans, but the deep roots of discrimination in society were hindering her career advancement. So this incident was a happy occasion for them too. They are glad to finally acknowledge the devotion of Azula's priest. The cardinal wished her luck in her new home. Kraft and the children watched what was happening. Suddenly, a hunter approached the hero and asked who this cute priest was. The young man told him everything. He was surprised that she would go with them to the new settlement. The girl looked at the guy. He blushed and smiled. He ran up to her, introduced himself as Girato and said that he was her bodyguard. Apparently, he fell in love with her. Kyle apologized for the wait and said that he said goodbye to his father. The boy understands that he will not return to Gandar anytime soon. Baylord watched from the window. Kraft remembers the moment when Father Altros asked the hero to protect Kyle. In his mind, the hero told him not to worry, he would protect Kyle. The half-human girl tells her friend not to do anything that could put Azul in an awkward position. Kyle realized who these people were. Azul thanked the boy with all her heart for his extraordinary kindness. The kids started talking about how they might not have experience, but they were happy to meet him. They asked him to take care of them. Kyle noted the politeness of these kids, and Kraft realized that he had fallen for their tricks. Azul worries about the effect this long journey will have on the children. Girato, Alfred, and Belcia tell them not to worry about it. The journey won't be long, they have a stamina potion in their hands. The carriages rush at high speed. Alfred uses Stormstrike. Girato uses Never-Ending Onslaught. Belcia continues to attack. At this rate, everything will go smoothly. No one will get hurt. Azu says that this energy and this speed are abnormal. She can't find a logical explanation for this. Lifan thanks the girl, because she had already forgotten how abnormal this is. Needless to say, they arrived only a few days later. Zeed came to the settlement, Golden Dawn. He does not understand what it means. Why is there not a soul in the settlement? The head of the guild says that he was waiting for the master. He demands an explanation. Where did the entire 1000th settlement go? He said he would pay 5 gold coins every month for a year to those who stayed. Didn't Kyle say that? The leader replied that Mr. Yakayo had said it publicly and left this announcement. But even so, no one remained after Mr. Kyle left. Zeed thought it was a joke, as if they were actually interested in going to the same dangerous frontier as Kyle. 2 weeks before Zaid's arrival, Kyle informed the villagers that the village would be under Zaid's rule and that Mr. Kyle was leaving for new lands. The people were truly indignant. The boy asked them to calm down. He suggested that they think about the future. If anyone wanted to follow him and settle in the new lands, then. But before the young man could finish, all the people raised their hands and said that of course they would follow him. They would not stay here. Kraft asked if they were sure of their decision. If they stayed, Mr. Zeed would pay them in full. The villagers shouted that they would make the village even better than this one. They would stun this aristocrat on his high horse. In that case, Kyle asks everyone to prepare for relocation. Kraft thought that many would prefer to stay. He mentally praised Kyle and said that he knows how to unite people. The boy does not know what this expression on the hero's face means. It is probably due to Kraft's popularity. The heroes stand in front of the boxes. Kraft summarizes what they are taking with them. Unfortunately, they will have to leave behind almost half of the stamina potions. They are not allowed to take the village's resources with them. They are lucky that Kilur's shop bought half of the stock. However, Kyle had acquired the materials for blacksmithing and alchemy in Gandhara. They could always make more if they had the materials. According to the terms of the contract with the guild, he must stay here. When things improve, they can set up a new branch of the guild and move the head of the Adventurers Guild to them. They left the village behind and began their journey. Their destination was the area where the district lived. It was a dangerous area, largely unexplored. Normally, such a journey would take months. But with potions, they are invincible. Reduka reported that they had already dealt with the pests. The other guy had some extra energy, so he built a road for future use. They moved quickly without any incidents, and they arrived in the blink of an eye. Kyle thanked Lifan and Alfred for waiting. The girl reported that the monsters nearby had been eliminated. They also planned where to place the houses. Kyle said that this was a wonderful job and they could begin building temporary housing. The inhabitants of the settlement set to work. Everyone contributed to the construction. Kraft noticed during the journey that they were too abnormal. They had come such a long way and were already doing hard work. It's just a theory, but to build muscle, he strains, then rests, and so on in a circle. Thanks to the potions, they can move all day without getting tired. After so much work without getting tired, they have built incredible muscles. Reddick defeats the Cyclops all by himself. Lifan realizes that it's all because of the legendary potion. She suggests to stop giving it away. Kraft had already spoken to Kyle about this. He said that if the consequences were too severe, the military would want to recruit them. It would be better to weaken the potions given to ordinary people. He is glad that they have many strong arms, but he asks Lifan to explain everything to them. The girl agrees and asks about the potions sold to adventurers. These potions can be as strong as possible. He tells her to sell them normally. Muscles do not interfere with them. A few days later, the merchant Akindo is amazed at the speed of construction. Kraft thanked them for coming. Akindo once again got a good deal after such a long break. As requested, he delivered volcanic ash and lime. He asked why they needed it. Although, as long as they pay, he is only too happy to trade with them. Kraft replied that their purpose would be unusual. It often becomes a problem for frequent rains, which is why it is quite cheap, so its delivery in large quantities is not a problem. Ash and limestone are required to create a certain building block. If you mix limestone, alchemical reagents, fine gravel and water with volcanic ash, it will harden until it resembles a boulder. If you shape it right away, it can become a solid building block. Akindo asked how strong it would be in the end. Kraft asked him to take a look. They made this one as a test. It already has a dent on this side. The block was resistant to sword attacks, so Redok got angry. He attacked it with all his might. But on the other hand, being attacked by Redok and still standing, it is incredibly strong. And what are they planning to build from such blocks? Kraft replied that they were going to build the greatest fortress city in the world. Akindo didn't look surprised. He was used to this kind of thing. Originally, according to Kyle's plan, it would take 20 years. However, while the hero was leafing through the books of the teacher Jarvel, his cross acquired a new ability. The alchemically tempered stone was studied. If they can create boulders, they won't need to be transported. It will make construction much cheaper and faster. Now it makes sense, they'll need a lot of ash for these rocks. It's an easy job for them, you can't come up with a better deal. Does Kraft agree to continue to cooperate with them? He agreed. He trusts them to deliver high-quality goods. However, he asked to keep it a secret until they finished. It would be bad if people heard about it and everything would go up in price. Akindo says he can be trusted. The request is from Kraft himself. Safety is their motto. They will deliver everything as soon as possible. The traders leave. One of them remarked that Kraft was interesting. He thinks on a different scale. But for them, this deal is all profit. That can be celebrated. The boss refused and said that not until they finish another case. The guild leader turned to Mr. Zed. He reported that a caravan was heading here from the direction of Mr. Kyle's settlement. The guy smiled slyly. Akindo was glad to meet Mr. Zed. The guy noticed a lot of leashes and realized that he was a significant trader. Zed asked about him now heading out of Kayla village. The situation there must have been quite sad for them. The merchants were in shock. Did he really think that they were returning after an unsuccessful journey? Akindo says that if possible, he would like to settle here. But it seems that nothing has started here yet. Zed said that new settlers have not yet arrived here. The guy offered to buy the merchant's goods. The barn contains 4 barrels of mithril and 9 barrels of stamina potion. They are special, made by an alchemist named Kraft. Akindo was inspired. Zed thought that he would sell the gifts that Kyle had so kindly left behind at a huge markup and double the settlement's initial funds. The merchant knows that there is no point in trying to persuade him to sell them for a low price. But he wonders if this amount will be enough for him. Zed's eyes widened. Akindo can pay for everything at once. Does he really always carry such a huge amount of money with him? The merchant replied that he had heard that a lot of mithril had been found here. Therefore, he would like to buy up all of its reserves. It was nothing compared to the initial funds of the settlement. Zed agreed to such a sum. The merchant thanked the guy and turned to him with a bold request 5 time PN. He says that it might seem a little imprudent after the service he did him. Will he allow an inn guild to be founded here? If he gives his company's hotel exclusive privileges here, they will be willing to pay 10% more in taxes. The earnings from the inns will be modest, but if he wants to try, so be it. Taxes will come in either case, so for him there are only advantages. The guy decides to squeeze everything he has out of it. He says that 10% is not nearly enough for a monopoly. He agrees to a 20% deal. The dealer agrees. Then the exclusive agreement is concluded. Zed didn't think he'd make so much money on Kyle's things, but it was his ingenuity. He managed to sell them for more than he planned. He'll show Kyle the difference. The assistant asked if it was the right decision. Judging by Zed, it only plays into his hands. Akindo says that since he sold the potions without using them, he did not realize what vein was hidden behind them. Jarvel arrived in the city and looked around. She didn't understand why there were only hotels here. Zed said that she was late and it was all because she wasn't here. No matter how hard he tries, only hotels are built here. Other than that, they only have a bar, a store, and a cart repair shop. Adventurers don't want to stay here, and settlers pass by. He understands what is happening here. He cannot develop the village like this. The girl says that she does not need to be told this, she herself has just arrived. The merchant's assistant says that even after all the taxes, they have a huge profit. He doesn't understand how he managed to do it. Akindo asks him to look at this. It's a document about the purchase of potions from Mr. Zed. He sold him the potions for less than 1/10 of the market price. It seems he didn't realize the true value of these potions. The profit was huge. The potions are worth a fortune, since Kraft sold them in very limited quantities. But that's not all that Mr. Zed failed to realize. The adventurers and settlers passing through here are heading to the new village of Golden Dawn after hearing about Mr. Kale. They never planned to settle here. However, it would take a normal person without crafting potions several days in the wild to reach the new settlement. But if there was a village to rest on their way, it would be a great place for an inn. The assistant understood why he had made an exclusive agreement on this matter. As Akindo had suspected, people were still passing through here. The hotels here were thriving. Zed asked Jarvel to find out what was going on here and why no one wanted to live here. The girl asked if she wasn't supposed to be an alchemist. A merchant's nose is his life. He must be able to sniff out easy prey. Now they can drink to it tonight. Time to celebrate. Zed screams that things should have been different. The action takes place in a small town. Several girls, huddled together, are looking at something with great interest. One of them asks if the main character is sure of his decision. They admire how he built such a beautiful church for them. The girls look at it, noticing its size. The young man says that they are planning to build a massive city, so they need a church to match. Ask if she is worthy of such a thing. The protagonist advises her, just do everything in her power. The little boy is also ready to help them. The young man looks at him and is surprised. The boy asks if the young man can teach them how to use magic. The protagonist does not know what to answer. He remembers what he promised the boys and agrees. The protagonist says he will teach them a few basics once a week. The heroes turn to craft and are surprised that he is not against it. The young man replies that he was planning to teach them anyway. He smiles and asks his new students, "Listen carefully and remember everything." The girl looks at him with admiration and understands that he has become very reliable. One of the guys says that they can call him Azula. Construction of the Golden Dawn Castle city is progressing rapidly. Eventually, it is planned to be 3 times the size of the capital. People from all over are heading here after hearing rumors. Everyone uses their special skills, works together. The protagonist's girlfriend asks him how the progress is going. The young man replies that everything is fine. They stand on a high wall. The protagonist admires the view from here and says that it is incredible. Their growth is rapid. People are already mastering the water supply. The protagonist asks what kind of tall building this is. The girl replies that it is a house for immigrants, built from a new building block. The protagonist is surprised that the girl supervised the entire construction process. Considering how many people there must already be, it was not easy. The heroine agrees. She asks if she knows about the privileges of those who want to get permanent citizenship. Such people are given a choice between support and housing. Hearing this, many masters came here. She thanks everyone for coming to such a remote place. The hero asks the craftsmen to share their experience with them. They first ask if they will be given housing. The hero replies that they have already prepared houses for them. In addition, they have also prepared high-class housing in the city for those who will do their job excellently. The girl turns to Mr. Kailu and says that he needs to tell this to the craftsmen. They in turn are surprised that if they do an excellent job, they will receive a high-class house in return. Everyone immediately rushes to do something from their specialty. One wants to do plumbing and provide all the houses with high-quality water. Someone is going to fix all the high places and make all the scaffolding. The girl is happy that everyone has a fighting spirit, and Mr. Kyle motivated the workers so well. It is noticeable even to the naked eye. The hero wishes everyone good luck. The heroine says that, as a rule, craftsmen cannot live in high-class houses, so everyone is delighted with the acquisition of a good home. The young man says that he is pleased to hear this. However, it seems that Kyle is well versed in such things. Day by day, Kyle is better at winning people's hearts. His current prospects are terrifying. Suddenly, one of the heroes shouts that the effect of the stamina potions has changed. The girl says that this is true and now she can't sell anything stronger to ordinary people. However, they are still crafted, so they do not spoil. Their effects last for a whole day. The protagonist says that he thinks this is still a good offer. The man says that in this case, he will buy everything for that amount of gold. The protagonist addresses Silura and greets her. Apparently, she is doing well. She exclaims in delight. The protagonist asks if she bought the place. It must have cost a lot. The protagonist says that it did. Thanks to Mr. Kalu, she was able to pay in installments without interest. In addition, she received many large orders, so things are going well. It's all thanks to the protagonist and the Craftsmen's Guild for the wholesale of potions. The girl looks at the protagonist gratefully and says thank you very much for this. The young man smiles and says that he is glad that he could help. If there are any problems, then the girl should not be shy. You need to contact him. Another person comes up to them and greets the craft. It is Redok. He says that Redok is on time and he wanted to tell him something. The young man congratulates his comrade on becoming a B-rank adventurer. He says it is well deserved. The protagonist says that he was the central figure in defeating the dragon and can defeat the Cyclops alone. The companion answers for this thanks to his potions and tempered mithril. The protagonist asks what about his reward. The warrior turns his back to him, on which hangs the sword, and asks if this is what he is talking about. The young man replies that the reward could not be better. He has never used a ball that suits him so well. Now he can kill Cyclops with one blow. It was made by adding a dragon tooth to tempered mithril. The hero is glad that his friend likes it. The girl who forged this sword has confidence in him. Redok says he wants to swing it and kill a Cyclops every day. The protagonist thinks he can swing the sword as much as he wants, but he will definitely regret it if he plays with it too much. A boy bursts into the protagonist's room and asks if he is going hunting. The young man asks again. He does not understand why he should go. It is not that he is against it, but the protagonist has things to do. The interlocutor replies that a large herd of wild boars was spotted in the forest. He says that once they finish, he won't be able to carry everyone away at once, so he thought about asking the main character for help. The young man understands that his comrade just needs his spatial storage. He stands up and says that he could use some exercise anyway. Suddenly, the protagonist stops and asks again what herd of boars they are talking about. He doesn't understand why his friend doesn't just take them with him. He asks again, who is he talking about? So, finally, everyone is here. The man says that these are new hunters. He was wondering if he could help them hunt and lead them through the forest. The protagonist says that it is nice to meet them. Everyone is eager to experience the opportunity to work with him on the same team today. The hunters ask what children are doing in their team. The young man replies that they are from the church. He wants to see how their magic training is going. The Poji say that they are looking forward to working with experienced hunters. They doubt that it is a good idea to take them along. However, the little ones are enthusiastic. The headhunter thinks about it. The protagonist asks him what he found there. The man replies that he found tracks similar to orcs. The hunters are now horrified and ask what this means. The hero answers that there are many of them, and it looks like this group. The hunters stop him and say that this is really not bad. It is very dangerous here, we need to go back. The main hero turns to the children and says that now they are looking for orcs together. The adults are indignant. They don't understand how you can say such things to children and remind them that they came here for the boars. The hero stops them with a gesture and says that everything is fine and there is no need to worry. Of course, he hasn't forgotten about the boars, but he thought that they could also deal with the orcs. The heroes don't understand how he can be so careless. After some time, they were already hiding in the bushes and looking out for their opponents. The hunters ask each other how many there are. It turns out that there are about 6 orcs, and that's not that many. However, even though the main character says that there aren't that many adults, the hunter would tremble with fear at such a number. Not long ago, he himself was so afraid. One of the children turns to the main character. He asks if they can really cope with so many enemies. The young man smiles and asks him not to worry. He reminds the kids that, with a little practice, given their current abilities, this won't be a problem. He is sure that the girl will be surprised when they bring her materials from the orcs. These words inspire the children. They promise to do it. The heroes are ready for battle. The adult hunters panic and ask, are they seriously sending children to the battlefield? This is pure madness. However, the main character's students decide to start first and rush to attack. They use the ability to increase agility. The men watch this in horror. Children use the icicle and storm shot skill. Thanks to this combination, they manage to take down one orc. The hunters are amazed at their agility. One of the children rushes at a whole crowd of opponents and shouts that it is his. Thanks to his powerful cutting technique, he manages to defeat an entire crowd. Next comes the falling flash of lightning. After a couple of seconds, there is practically nothing left of the opponents. The children run to their teacher, shouting that they did it. They are happy that they dealt with their opponents themselves. The hunters ask each other if this is some kind of joke, and the children killed all the orcs in the blink of an eye. The main character says that everything is fine. They ask him again in horror. The man says that he is completely abnormal. Even adults risk their lives fighting orcs. Only some special children can deal with them so easily. The hunters ask, who are they? The young man turns to him and says that, to be honest, these children drink mana and stamina potions every day. He also made them train hard. The hunters are amazed, asking again, did they really drink his potions every day? The protagonist replies that he told them about the mage once a week. However, the Ryodot group also helped with their training. They trained harder than most, so they grew up quickly. In addition, their equipment is made of tempered mithril. The armor, gloves, boots, alchemy-reinforced fabric are all made of a special material. The hunters are surprised that the children have such equipment. The protagonist says that, in his opinion, it might be too extravagant for children. However, the young man does not want them to get hurt. The kids run to their teacher and brag about how cool they were. The young man says they really did well. However, there is still a long way to go to recognize and correct the mistakes. The children wonder, did they not do a good teamwork? The young man says that is not what he means, and means that they did not correctly assess the situation. A surviving orc peers out from behind the bushes. The hunter shoots him down with his arrow. The children turn around in horror. The man says they have missed another one that could have put their lives on the line. The young warriors sigh in disappointment. The protagonist says that the children who were able to deal with the orcs have already impressed him. They did a great job, so they can take their materials as a reward. The hero agrees and decides to dismantle the orcs for materials. They want to find out how much he gets for them. The children look so happy. The hunter says it's a nice sight. And the village of Golden Dawn is a scary place. The maid wishes the protagonist good morning and calls him master. Before creating Ryuko, the girl asks about the dragon material doll. The protagonist says that this is roughly how he would like to create the doll. It will be his first time doing such work, so he would like to consult with her. Kliushka takes the blueprint from him and asks why he needs such a doll. He makes a doll from materials for creating the strongest skeletons, golems, gargoyles, which has more power than the bosses of ancient dungeons. The main character says that he needs someone who can keep secrets, get around the house, and protect people. Or, in other words, he needs an assistant maid. The girl says that he almost scared her to death. The question is, if he only needs one maid, then he should make the maid his familiar. Make it familiar, the maid will immediately have the necessary knowledge base. It will be more useful about him. The girl says that something still bothers her. She decides that it will be so, and makes a gift for the main character. The girl opens a box, in which a huge, precious stone sparkles. The protagonist, they ask what it is. The girl answers that it is a personality stone. It will give the doll his character and behavior. You could say that it will become the brain of the doll. It is an unimaginably rare thing in the world. And in this stone is the personality of the best maid in the kingdom. The protagonist looks at her in surprise. The girl asks if he is happy about it. She did what was needed for his future doll with such a stone. It definitely cannot be used as a deadly killing machine. The main character is touched by the fact that she gave such an important thing to him. He hugs his teacher and thanks her. He says that the girl is the best teacher because not everyone is ready to sacrifice so much for the sake of the students. The heroine pushes him away and asks me to hug her so simply. The young man apologizes, says that he did not recognize her as a girl because she looks like a child. In any case, she gives it to him. The girl asks him not to invent anything strange with the doll. She says that the main character should not dare to teach her any combat tricks. The young man is happy and says that he can't wait to ask Lifan to make a body. The young man wants to create the best maid in this world. The teacher thinks how good it is that he is such a simpleton. She turns to the main character and says that she has something else she needs to tell him. She wants to talk to him about this research work. The young man says that he hasn't even thought about it. However, he promises to pass on all the research results to her. They agree that the heroine will act as his co-author again this time. The young man is touched by this offer. The girl starts to nag at him. The young man apologizes. Thus, he gets the stone from the teacher. Thanks to this, he manages to create his very first doll familiar maid. The doll wishes him good morning. The maid enters the main character's bedroom and pulls back the curtains from the window. She asks where he would like to have breakfast. The protagonist asks to have it served in the living room. He is happy that Ryuko has created. She does everything perfectly the first time. He can entrust her with anything and not worry about the result. This is divine luck. The young man thanks his teacher. He says that today's breakfast is simply delicious. The maid agrees, says that today's schedule begins with dinner in the company of Mr. Kyle. The protagonist remembers that today there should be intermediate results of the dry individual fields. We will have to discuss this. By the young man is used for the fields. It is hoped that it has had a good effect. The hero thanks for the food, says that he is going. He asks what the doll will do while he is gone. She says that she has plans to clean up. The hero asks her not to let him down. The doll wishes him a good journey. The young man thinks about what cleaning is. What an unusual choice of word, and the house is already clean. So she will clean even where she is not visible? The hero is pleased with his maid. Two people are watching him from the roof of the house. After the hero left, they hope to get their legendary potions. They are thinking about taking him hostage and making money from it. They discuss the protagonist's physical condition and his participation in the raid on the dragon. Suddenly, a doll appears behind the robber and addresses the dear guests. But they ask men how they can help them. Did they really come by official appointment? The men immediately rush into battle. They do not understand how the dolls were able to come from behind without making a sound. One of the men raises his hand over her to hit Togo, but something doesn't go according to his plan. Of course, the sword dives into her, but the girl is turned in. She grabs the blade with 2 fingers. The maid says that now it is clear they are what are called thieves. The maid crushes the ball with her blades in one motion. The man looks at her, amazed. He can't wrap his head around how she can hold the blade so tightly. The doll rushes to attack. She gets close to the second robber and slaps him. The robber immediately cuts off to the side. The girl and his partner watch after him. Lafon and her master worked on building is not as easy to break into as they think. It is especially difficult to do this in shoes, for which the maid will not forgive them. The robber is amazed. He starts to run away from his opponent. Suddenly something blocks his path. The man looks up and sees the maid in front of him. He turns to her, trying to justify himself in every way so that he will be spared. The girl looks at him with an empty gaze. In fact, the craft did not know that the girl used a ton of dragon materials. Being the best world and maid for her own personality was actually a little different. She became the strongest maid with her own personality. I didn't know or notice anything about it yet. The girl says that the cleanup is done. Someone calls the main character. A boy on horseback wishes him good morning. The young man asks if he really knew how to ride a horse. The child replies that he really didn't know how to do it until now. Thanks to the main character, his health has improved, and now he is taking riding lessons. Mr. Kyle is a real hard worker. He can't gallop yet, but Mr. Kyle has already mastered walking. The girl suggests going to look at the fields. The protagonist asks what is wrong with their animals. The heroine is surprised, says that she asked the merchant for 2 highly functional racehorses, and they got them. When they address the bird, she says that it is kind of affectionate. The hero is surprised by the unusual name of the racer. He thinks that it is good that she did not choose the name of the village. The heroine asks what is wrong with his face. Did he really want her wing? Suddenly the hero is hugged by a little girl. He asks if the Mina is coming too. The girl replies that if he thinks she will get in the way, they can ask for her to be returned. Tears well up in the little girl's eyes. Men run up to the heroes and start cursing at the young man for making his mistress cry. The young man asks him to stop, saying that he is not guilty of anything. In fact, Kyle made him out to be a villain. The boy apologizes. The protagonist leans towards the girl, daring her not to cry. He suggests going somewhere together. He has completely forgotten about the cruelty of these overprotective knights. If he angers them, he will be killed on the spot. So, the protagonist asks what happened in the fields. The boy replies that it concerns the recently sown fields. It seems that something unimaginable happened in the fields. The protagonist asks what exactly. He thanks the women for the fact that the heroes worked hard and came to them. The young man says they heard something serious happened in the bedrooms. She says it's easier to see for themselves than to explain. The woman shows what exactly happened. The hero stops in bewilderment. The young man asks what this is. The woman replies that it is all wheat. The heroes do not understand why the wheat turned into a forest. They planted so much of it that it is simply impossible. The woman says that ordinary wheat really does ripen like this. But she remembered something that could affect the growth of wheat. Anna recalls how they received a special fertilizer from the main character. Last month, they sowed wheat fertilized with his product. The first shoots appeared very quickly, and they were very happy about it. And before they could blink, the wheat had turned into what they were seeing now. The young man refused to believe it. Sure, his fertilizer was a great product, but could it be that good? He asks if it could be the result of their fertilizer and the land they planted the wheat in. It is very rich in nutrients. He doesn't believe it. The boy asks if the wheat has been tested for safety. The woman replies that to test, they prepared many different dishes, and there were no problems. On the contrary, all the dishes were highly rated. For example, this pastry made from that wheat. The woman invites everyone to try it. The hero tries it and says it's very tasty. At first glance, the stale bread, when it first appeared in his hands, gave the feeling of soft dough, and its elasticity makes the dough stretch so beautifully pleasantly when biting that at first you forget about its taste, but immediately the warmth begins to spread throughout the body. This bread is a real work of art. The boy says he wants to try it too. The guard asks him to stop. He says that everyone can see for themselves that this is abnormal wheat, they should watch a little longer. Suddenly, the girl tries a piece of bread to taste. Scary does not rush to Mrs. Mana. The main character asks her if it is tasty. The girl gobbles up the bread and nods her head. The boy asks if he can't. The guard forbids it. The kid starts to tearfully beg Alfred. The protagonist tells him that nothing will happen. The child can try a little in this. The guard asks him to stop these groundless statements. The protagonist says that there is nothing to be afraid of, and that the workers should be trusted with him. He says he understands that it is a man's job to say that, but if he forbids the boy to eat bread, what will happen then? The child might simply hate him? The man gives in to his persuasion. He decides that even if something happens, they will be able to react. The kid also tastes the bread and says that it is very tasty. With such good wheat, they could increase the area of its sowing. The workers say they can replant it if they use Mr. Kraft's fertilizer. The land is good, it doesn't need to rest, so they can sow wheat several more times this month. The hero says it's wonderful, suggests increasing the area of the fields and starting to harvest the entire current crop. The boy asks if the protagonist will be able to prepare the required amount of fertilizer. The young man answers that yes. The harvest will be enough for absolutely everyone, and there will be some left for export. Thus, the power of the Golden Dawn continued to increase with the expansion of the fields. Wheat grown on special fertilizers has sold like hotcakes. Thanks to the main character, there is no end to traders who want to steal your wheat. The hero is thinking about changing the name. Days later, the action takes place in the adventurer's casing. The cat girl wishes a good day to the main character. The protagonist says that apparently it is not a matter of turning for her. The girl replies that gentlemen, adventurers, having heard rumors, come one after another. Recently, she is an employee of the Adventurers Guild. In the Golden Dawn, everyone now lives in harmony. The protagonist. He is happy that everything is going so smoothly. The girl asks what he wishes for today. They have many rare specimens. The hero is asked if in this case it is possible to have only one high-quality stone. The heroine asks if the other stones are not high quality. The hero shows that. The stones in the collection are mostly ordinary or of low quality. The girl says that she did not even suspect this. The cat girl says that this city is full of strange materials, so her detection magic doesn't work on them. She's glad he agreed to help her. He says he didn't agree, and just because he can use detection magic doesn't mean he has permission to do so. She says an official order would cost a pretty penny. She says that everything is fine, and people who find out that these materials were determined by Kraft himself will trust her. The protagonist asks if his opinion is really a joke for her, and the determination of a person who does not have permission to do this is trustworthy. The girl says that he seems to not know who he really is. The hero decides that she can do whatever she wants, but he will not be responsible for the consequences. Meanwhile, the protagonist's student is training hard. He owns his already masterful sword strikes. Experienced hunters fight against children. The girl shoots arrows. The hunters say they are surrounded. The adults ask each other if the protagonist's students are really just kids. The young man, meanwhile, is surprised and looking at something. He greets his acquaintance. The young man asks why the children are training with the adventurers. Reddick says he just wanted to test their strength. The effect of the legendary stamina potion is very strong, so only a weaker version is sold to the villagers. But these children beat the same legendary potions as all the adventurers. The protagonist did not know what the outcome would be, so he asked Reddock to keep an eye on the children. The boys don't understand why the children are so tired if they are supposed to be under the influence of the potion. The protagonist says that he sent them to practice today without the legendary potion. It turns out that 2 of the adventurers who fought the children are C rank and the other 2 are D rank. This means that the real strength of these children can cause trouble even for foreign tourists of such a high rank. Due to an unnamed incident in the past, the top 3 ranks are obtained after a very thorough examination. The protagonist says that for many adventurers, simply reaching such a rank is already a big dream. This is all because he went a little overboard with his students' training. So this is what they can achieve even under the guidance of the best Golden Dawn group. The hero thinks that he should get used to the pace and the strange common sense of this place. The comrade interrupts his thoughts and says that I need to forget that the children's growth happened because they trained tirelessly thanks to his legendary potions. After all, his alchemy is something incredible. A man runs up to them and is happy that he found the heroes. The protagonist recognizes him as the head of the Adventurers Guild. The man offers the young man to walk with him. The protagonist says that judging by the rush, something related to the city happened. The man nods his head and says that they need to hurry. The action takes place in the Adventurers Guild. The protagonist asks what urgent matter the man was talking about. He replies that he will speak directly. Currently, large concentrations of cockatrice have been discovered in these lands. The youth asks again. A royal Tamil animal, consisting of parts of a dragon and a serpent with the head of a rooster. Feeling their breath, the body of a living creature begins to crystallize slowly, turning into stone. The areas of their presence are quite wide. The exact number is unknown. The protagonist turns to his comrade, asking how he is with crystallization resistance. He replies that with light breathing he can handle it. Even adventurers of his level will not be able to completely block crystallization. The protagonist asks what the approximate number of Coroliusks is. The man replies that there is no exact data, so the number is approximate, but it can exceed several thousand individuals. The main character is horrified. People have never met such a large number before. The hero understands that if such a large number of enemies attack the city, nothing will remain. They built a special fortress to protect themselves from such raids. The main problem is crystallization. If they can protect themselves from it, then this is already a big victory. They must protect the inhabitants of the Golden Dawn at any cost. The protagonist says they need to consult with Kyle. The man says he will gather information. So, within days of discovering the cockatrices, they began working on ways to defend against them. The main character suggested creating a case of the Antichrist by licking and removing crystallization. The maid turns to him and says that the main character needs rest. The point here is that he did almost nothing. The Antichrist's licking potion is apparently not the kind of potion that is suitable for large-scale production. Even one more potion can save the creature's life, and only he can do it. Therefore, the protagonist cannot rest. A cat girl bursts in on him. She screams that they are being attacked by a flock of cockatrices. They are advancing on their city. The main character asks where the flock is. They show him from which side the enemy is attacking. The young man activates farsightedness. On the other side, however, a huge crowd of mythical creatures is rushing. If nothing is done, there will be no living soul left. The protagonist asks if everything has been passed on to Kayla. He is told that the messengers are already on their way. Regarding the defense system, Mr. Kyle is still preparing his troops, so they can only afford Alfred and Belcia. The number of adventurers who have signed a contract is about 20 people. These people simply do not oppose such a raid. Someone asks the protagonist to calm down. One of the adventurers says that all who are ready to fight in case of trouble are ready to stand up for the defense of the city. Working in tourism involves constant risks, so they are cautious about any danger. Money is always second to their life for them. Therefore, even if you offer them money with a big risk to their life, they can easily refuse it. Jera says that their teams are not the ones who signed a contract with the city. The man says that some are grateful to this city for everything it has given us. They would like to be on the same side with the main character and Mr. Kyle as long as possible. The men say that they are not here now as adventurers, but as those who want to protect their home and their friends. They ask, is any payment necessary to save a friend? The protagonist thanks them. One of the adventurers says that there are only a couple of hundred of them. However, he assures that they are not used to fighting in a large army. First, the main character decides to come up with a tactic to kill the devil of foreign tourists. If there are any changes in the behavior of the cockatrices, he asks to tell him. The action takes place in the Adventurers Guild. Kyle addresses the main character. He asks how he came. Kraft is looking for his comrade, Redok. One of the men replies that, unfortunately, he is currently out of town on an accepted mission. The absence of a man is comparable to the loss of a large army. Alfredo is evacuating residents to blocks reinforced with reinforced materials. In any serious situation, the safety of residents comes first. But the problem is different. The main character says that the construction of the walls is not finished yet. They have 3 such points in total. One is in the north, another is in the west, and another one is in the south. There should have been fortresses there. The protagonist says that their army consists of only 300 people. He orders to send the most capable adventurers to the west. The man asks if it is really necessary to send more than half to one place at once. Then there will be very few people left for the remaining 2 points. The hero says that he observed the behavior of the cockatrices from the tower. They were very aggressive. Having seen people, they are unlikely to decide to distribute their forces. Therefore, they will all attack those who stand in the west at once. The hero turns to the phone. He apologizes, but warns that all the anti-crystallization potions will have to be sent to the west. The man asks what will happen to the other parts. The protagonist says that they only have 200 anti-crystallization potions, and there won't be enough for the north and south. The man asks what the rest should do. Does the protagonist really want to turn them into cannon fodder? The young man leans on a chair and turns to the file. It is very difficult for him to make such difficult decisions. He says that Belcia and Alfred should stand in the north and south respectively. With them, even a small detachment of warriors will somehow be able to resist the cockatrices. The hero says that they have no more land to lick the Antichrist, but they still have potions that remove crystallization. He has just started producing them, so there is not much of it, but it will help them buy time. Belcia and Alfred's squads, these items that remove crystallization, will be used on petrified people. The man replies that you are too crazy to be a rabble. They need time for that to prepare. The hero replies that in the meantime, he will continue to create potions. Those present do not understand why he wants to send warriors to hell with such weak practice. It is too dangerous. Belcia says that for her it is not a problem. She says they are fit for purpose. While they are guarding the city, someone must stand guard over Kyle. The Kurds ask the benches what they will do if the Kuroiski suddenly break through. He wonders what will happen to Kale and Mama in the big fuss. The girl says that she is a bodyguard and must protect Kyle. The boy meanwhile says that he values the life of everyone in the Golden Dawn and does not want to lose their city. He asks if the girl could go to defend the walls. It's a very dangerous job, but only she can handle it. If she thinks about him, she must think about those dear to him and those he wants to protect. The boy asks her to promise that she will come back. Kyle says that he will never forgive her for this if she does not come to the defense. He asks if the girl will do this for him. The heroine salutes and says that if this is what her master desires, then she will fulfill her duty and justify his expectations. She asks her friends not to worry and says that with her powers, the cockatrices are a mere trifle for her. However, Kraft really did come up with a crazy tactic. He must understand his limits. Everything now depends on how fast he is. The main character asks her to rely on him. He will definitely deliver them the potion of the Antichrist's transformation. With these words, the battle with time began. The protagonist returns home. The maid greets her master. The young man turns to her and says that they need to hurry. The adventurers must help him. Everything is ready to start brewing the potion. For the anti-crystallizing potion to work, a person needs a whole bottle, which means that for the north of the south, a whole barrel will be needed. With the current method of brewing, he will never make it in time for Togo. In order to make a potion for 100 people, he will have to use his magical powers to the point of exhaustion. Even if he doesn't succeed, great casualties cannot be avoided. The young man decides that now is not the time to dream and he must begin as soon as possible. He orders everyone to follow the maid's instructions. Work in the workshop is in full swing. The main character uses the maximum of his strength and capabilities to make it on time. Finally, he says that 1 barrel of antique crystallizing potion is ready. He demands to be delivered to the north and south as soon as possible. Now he starts making a potion to remove crystallization. Loud stomping sounds are heard in the street. The protagonist asks if it is too noisy in the street. Suddenly, a terrible thought comes into his head. He runs out into the yard to find out what happened. The young man sees smoke rising into the sky from the western wall. He watches as the guns are prepared and realizes that the cockatrices were already breaking through. I can say that, fortunately, not all did, but a small number leaked into the city. 3 points of the defensive wall are still in development, but the walls are only at the first stage of progress. The hero wonders if they can withstand. The maid asks the protagonist if he doesn't mind. Can he scout out the situation of the wall defenses? She says that if the walls are not erected, his procession will be interrupted. An immediate confirmation of the state of affairs is required. The hero says that she is just a maid, and he cannot just let her go. The girl asks to leave it to her. The protagonist agrees. He asks her to also take a look at what is going on with the main group of foreign tourists. The maid leaves. The heroes return to their work and remember that he should not leave here. His battlefield is in the workshop. They need to brew potions as soon as possible. If he only had one ingredient, he would have finished cooking long ago. The hero wonders where to get a cockatrice egg. A few days before the attack, one of the main character's students suggests that her friends go and defeat the orc. Her friend says that she didn't understand why they were called here. She decides to go call the hunter. The cat girl says that they are going alone. They are just going to have a picnic, like they used to. She asks if they are not strong enough. They can cope perfectly well without adults, especially since they can definitely cope with potions, Kraft's brother. She reminds them that they were told they could use as much as they wanted. Her friend replies that it doesn't make it any safer. The girl suggests walking to a large boulder. If there are no adults, then it will become an adventure. And their adventure goal will be to defeat the orc and give the magic stone to their sister Azu. The girls imagine how their little sister will praise them. She asks if the stamina potion is ready. Hearing an affirmative answer, the girl says that they are ready too. The heroine commands to set off. She suggests running to the mountains in a race. Meanwhile, fierce fighting is taking place near the city walls. The commander shouts to his soldiers not to rush to retreat. A huge monster is flying straight towards him. The man cuts off his head. The monster falls to the ground, hitting several soldiers. The knights ask their comrades to rely on them. The commanders demand not to stand in order to go into battle. Most of the adventurers do not know how to work together. He knew it would be difficult, but did not think it would be to this extent. The man understands that he must take control of the situation. They can somehow cope with their current forces, but if the enemies attack in groups at once, they won't survive. Tiger the fighter asks if he should follow them. The commanders answer that no, he doesn't think they'll stop. Even like that, he doesn't understand what to do next. Someone approaches him, asking if it is true that he is Commander de Garde. The man turns around abruptly and freezes in horror. The maid runs towards him as fast as she can. She says she has messages for the commander. The man asks what she is doing here. The girl says that it is believed that entire walls will not succumb to the onslaught of cockatrices, so their protection is no longer needed, although I can jump very high with the help of wings. The enemy won't be able to fly over the walls, so it's worth calming down and fighting until the last breath. The commander thanks for the news. He says that it's worth defending the breach. He turns to the neighboring group and commands them not to attack, but to take up a defensive line. The maid notes that the situation is not the most favorable, the man confirms. He says it would be nice to at least give numbers to these groups. It would be much easier to contact them. The maid asks whether to give the adventurers the numbers of their squads. The man is surprised. He says that she is just a maid. He can't just let her into the vanguard. The girl says you're no problem, and she'll borrow their axes. The commander asks her to stop because she took his spare axes. However, the heroine is no longer visible. One of the fighters asks when this commander's support became one-handed. In fact, it is a two-handed heavy axe. Many are unable to even lift one axe. But the maid took two at once without any problems. The commander asks who this maid is anyway. At this time, in the zone where the leader has not yet been defeated, fighting continues. The soldiers fight bravely against the Korolisks. Cockatrice hides behind the smaller enemies. The soldiers notice him and strike him with the enormous size of the enemy. A huge monster opens its mouth. The soldiers try to defend themselves from it, but they realize that things are bad. Suddenly, the monster's eyes roll back and it slowly begins to fall to the ground. The soldiers stand and do not understand what is happening. A silhouette of a maid moves through the air at incredible speed, cutting her opponent into several pieces. People watch this spectacle from the ground. The girl lands, crossing two axes between them. She looks at everyone with her burning, warlike eyes. In an instant, the hero realizes that this is the main character's maid. She once again develops incredible speed and rushes towards her opponents. She deftly handles the supports and takes down several more monsters. The girl turns to the astonished soldiers and says that now they can talk in peace. She turns to Mr. Lactone and says that his group is responsible for this part. However, the cockatrices began to break through the defense line. She says that if they continue to break away from Mr. Degard, they will eventually split into smaller groups that will be easier to kill. At the same time, they will not be able to kill the leader of the cockatrices. The man apologizes to her and says that they really have separated. The squad needs to return to the defense line. In addition, the girl says that from now on, Lacton's group will be numbered first. Adzafire is number 2. He and his squad must carry out all orders given to them. The hero is surprised and asks the maid how she knows his name. The girl says that she knows the names of all the city's residents. The soldiers are amazed. The heroine replies that this is the maid's duty. She asks for forgiveness and says that she has other messages to deliver. She prays for the success of the battle. The girl rises and disappears into the air. The squad leader asks the soldiers if they saw it. There wasn't a drop of blood on her after all she'd done. Lactan asks if that was all he noticed. Meanwhile, the girl continues to carry out her mission. She helps the squad deal with the Korolisks and gives them numbers. The messages are over. The line is restored. The girl freezes in a combat readiness position and decides that now is the time for a real battle. The heroine stands opposite a long dark corridor. Meanwhile, the city is being evacuated. Sensible people are calling on others not to crowd and maintain order. They are given first aid within the hospital walls. Azula bandages the girl's arm. She turns to her and asks if it's true that the baby is in so much pain. She tries to calm the child and says that everything is fine now. The protagonist is given hot drinks and asked to drink carefully. The girl turns to the boys and says that when they finish, they need to see if there are any wounded on the street. The children agree. Someone calls her and the heroine rushes to help. The girls look at each other and ask each other what they will do. The cat girl suggests her friend to go and return it. Da replies that it is too late. She wanted to talk to her sister Azu, but she is too busy now. A friend suggests going to the guild in that case. The cat girl says that in that case, Azu's sister will be angry with them, not to mention the others. She suggests that they, and maybe even their little sister, might end up being driven out of this city. The girl falls to her knees in panic and clutches her head. The child says that he just wanted to make his little sister happy. Everything went completely wrong. It would be better for them to give up adventurism altogether. The children look back at the cabinet, which contains something that only they know about. If they had not been carried away by adventurism, then they would not have brought this egg to the Ural city. This egg became the root of the catastrophe. The action moves to the main character's home. A man runs to him at his house and asks if the petrification removal is ready. The young man turns around and shouts that they will be ready now, and he is in the process of making it. He asks which unit the men came from. They answer that they are from the right-wing group, Alfred's group. The protagonist understands that the warriors have begun to give up their positions. The center has already arrived, most of the cockatrices, and now they are asking him for new supplies of potions without rest. The main character understands that at the moment the only saving grace is that the left wing is now in order. He asks if their commander can't wait a little longer. The man asks how he imagines it. Their opponents, as if enraged, attacked the mind. Even Alfred can't cope with them. The protagonist asks in horror if they have really broken through to the city. The warriors answer that no, they are holding them back for now. However, the adventurers who rushed into battle are petrified from the breath cockatrice. Not only that, they were all smashed by these Carillions, in such a state that only dust remained of them. The protagonist says in despair that he just made a potion against petrification. The man asks in surprise if this is true, and demands that the protagonist give them to him quickly. The young man says he won't do that. He'll give them only a small portion of what's prepared. The rest will go to the center. The man is indignant. He asks how this small part will help them. He starts cursing, saying that they will all die there because of the main character. His comrade stops him. He demands that the young man think with his head. From whatever side you look, the center is more important in Seoul. If they break through there, then an irreparable number of opponents will enter the city. The main character already spends a lot of time and energy on it, and if they have to wait for the next game, they simply won't survive. The man says that initially they were thinking of taking everything for themselves. He says that it is not easy for them and asks to understand them. The protagonist breathes heavily and bends over the barrels. There's only one thought in his head. He needs to make as much potion as possible as quickly as possible. Is someone calling his name? A girl runs into the room and asks how she can help the main character. The young man is surprised by Li Fan's appearance. He asks if she has finished with the fence. The girl replies that the final touch has been made. We are asked how the medicines for petrification are going. The men pour medicines into the main character's sadi. The girl sees how the young man is feeling and tries to cheer him up. She says that the main character can't afford to be down right now. He just needs to do everything and squeeze the maximum out of himself. There is nothing to be done about the fact that he does not have what he needs. Especially in this situation, every person has a limit. She asks to allow others to help him in some way. The girl asks why she does this, since they are all here. The young man was touched by her words. He says that if that's the case, then the medicine needs to be delivered to the right wing. The girl will be much faster than the others, so she can do it. The heroine snatches the barrel from the men's hands and says that this should have been discussed earlier. She asks the protagonist to rely on her. She promises to deliver the barrel as soon as possible. The protagonist opens the mana elixir. He sets himself up to just do everything he can, and finally, make that medicine. The action moves back to the defensive line. The action takes place in the left wing. The commander looks at the horizon and says that the enemy has arrived. She commands her warrior to act according to tactics. They need to get ready. The girl climbs onto her steed. She turns to the wing and says that she has hopes for him. The opponents rush towards the wall at great speed. The squad rushes into battle. At the head of the army on her steed, the heroine rushes. She calls on everyone with a war cry to fight to the last. The cockatrices rush forward without stopping, but he blocks their path. The girl spurred her steed, wing reared up. The fierce opponents did not stop. The heroine rushes into the attack and begins to hack at the cockatrices with all her might. They make loud, unpleasant noises. The girl points her sword at one of them and says that this is their dead end. The opponents pause a little and begin to breathe. The warriors from the squad are amazed by her abilities. They say that Belzia-san uses all the capabilities of the wing and simply wears out the cockatrices. And the plan of the left wing was as follows. While the leader of the team drives the opponents into one pile, the rest deal with them from a distance with arrows. The warriors support their commander. They shout to the girl to drive the opponents and not let them pass. The heroine continues to swing her sword, driving her opponents into a corner. When they all mix together in one heap, the girls shout that now is the time to attack. The archers draw their arrows. They fire a whole charge of arrows at their opponents. There are many explosions. The squad begins to rejoice, thinking that they have won. The heroine rudely stops them, demands that they not lose their vigilance. Cockatrice appears right next to her. The monster opens its mouth. The commander wriggles out, realizing that this is the end. Suddenly, someone shoots an arrow at the enemy. She hits him right in the head. The girl turns around and sees the hunter. He asks if she's okay. The heroine exclaims joyfully and thanks the young man for saving her. The young man supports the warriors and says that they need to give the same thrashing to the second wave of opponents. The leader of the squad thinks that maybe next time she will introduce him to a night girl. The young man is happy about this and shouts that he will try his best. The heroine is surprised that he heard her words. The young man shouts that he will do all the opponents. In any case, the girl thinks that they will be able to hold out. Meanwhile, a new group of opponents approaches the wall. However, with such pressure, the defense will not last long. At this time, in the right wing, the commander addresses her subordinates. He says that the boys haven't drunk the potion of fortitude yet, so they don't need to push forward. They have used up all their petrification cure potions, and they can't take any more losses. Who likes a man like that? The warriors ask if this means he will have to fight alone. The commander says that in general it does. He will be alone, but they will have to finish off all the wounded enemies. The man says his way of fighting will be a little special. He spurred his horse and also headed to the front. The man accelerates to incredible speed and puts his spear in front of him. With his characteristic cry, he rushes towards the cockatrices. The enemies do not stop and fly straight at the commander. Having got as close as possible to the opponents, the man begins to spin the spear. Thus, he beats huge monsters out of his way. He succeeds. He takes out several of them. His subordinates watch the battle with interest. They support their commander and admire how he simply pierced all his opponents. While he works with a spear, it is better not to come close to him. The man smiles, turns to his steed and praises him for his good work. However, the man did not take into account one thing. His opponents could fly, and a huge bird flew right over his head. She heads towards defenseless warriors. Young people run away in different directions. The commander loudly studies and reproaches himself for such inattention. He notes that this cockatrice is bigger than all the others. The man understands that things are bad and he may not make it in time. Where do you hear the voice from above shouting that he will deal with it? The girl rushes to help her friend. With the help of the rock-crushing technique, she unleashes a powerful blow on the opponent's heads. Everyone watches her in amazement. The monster falls to the ground. The heroine lands next to him. She turns to the driver and tells the boys that she has brought a cure for petrification. Warriors almost cry from happiness. The commander approaches the girl. He addresses her. The heroine says that she will fight with them. The girl whose calling is the jagged must be a master of the hammer. She will be of great help to them. With her, the heroes will be able to hold out for some time, but the man is still worried about something. Everything has a limit. Now it all depends on the speed of preparing potions. The action moves to a church. A girl is bandaging a wounded man. A maid approaches her from behind and addresses her by name. She asks if the heroine has a minute. The girl turns around in surprise. The girl looks at her guest in surprise. It recognizes the familiar features of the maid's face and asks if it is true that it is Ryuko-san. The heroine is surprised by such an arrival. Water is asked how he can help the main character's maid. The maid shows her characteristic grace and asks if the heroine will allow her to meet the 4 children being raised in the church. They knock on the door. The girls turn around and ask if they need help. The girl apologizes to the maid for being so tired, but says that he is counting on the children and that they will help her. Now she needs to get back to work. The girl leaves the room. The maid watches her and then turns to the children and says that she will take care of the name now. She leans towards the girls and asks if they will give her what is behind them. Behind is a cabinet in which the egg is hidden. The heroines look at the maid in horror. The girl says that the main character needs this thing. She adds that the girls will go with her straight to the main character. The little girls try to object, but the maid interrupts them. The girls start crying and apologizing and say that they are very sorry that this happened. The maid is surprised by such a reaction. She comes to her senses and also apologizes to the children. The girl says that she was just in a battle and did not have time to adjust to the situation. She makes a sweet face and smiles at the children. She says she has a bad expression on her face. It will be even harder for her than housework. Once again, she is replaced for being confused. Just wanted to tell the girls what to do. She promises that everything will be fine, and the main character is a kind person. She smiles and says that the young man will certainly forgive them. The maid stretches out her arms to the children to hug the little ones. She invites them all to go to him together. Meanwhile, in the main character's house, the potion making is still going on. The young man is breathing heavily, but still continues to fight. He has made another barrel of medicine. The young man says that now it needs to be delivered. The man agrees with him. The hero understands that there is no time to rest. He needs to prepare medicine. Suddenly, the hero's head starts spinning. The man turns around and calls the young man by name. The man looks at the protagonist in horror, but they don't have time to do anything. The young man falls, but suddenly someone catches him. The maid deftly holds the young man in her arms and asks if he is okay. The young man is also happy that she came and says that the girl saved him. The main character smiles, says that the girl is quite strong, despite her rather fragile appearance. Now the strength of his maid will also have to be taken into account. The girl bows and thanks the young man. She reports to the protagonist that there are no problems beyond the walls. It seems that the enemies have not destroyed anything yet. The protagonist is happy and says that this is very encouraging news. He breathes heavily and understands that now there are problems with him. No matter how much the protagonist drinks the mana potion, fatigue and insane magical exhaustion make themselves known. This is the price for preparing legendary potions on a large scale. The girl understands that something is needed that can radically change the situation. She turns to the main character, says that she has one more piece of news. The young man asks what she is talking about. The heroine turns to the children and tells them to be brave. The boys are afraid to look up at their teacher. They are very ashamed and embarrassed to admit that they made a mistake. The maid nudges the cat girl and tells her that she can take her time. The little girl hides her eyes and asks for forgiveness. She says that the monster's attack may have been their fault. The girl trembles with fear and does not dare to look her teacher in the eyes. The main character is amazed and looks at the object that the little girl holds out to him. The girl holds a cockatrice egg in her hands. The surprised man also watches what is happening with interest. The child continues to hold out the egg and says that they came for an adventure. They thought they would bring the egg as a trophy, but they didn't want it to turn out that way. One of the men calls the girl a cat and grabs the egg from her hands. He says that the child doesn't understand what she's done. The children, horrified, beg for forgiveness. The main character suddenly grabs the enraged man by the arm and prevents him from hitting the child. He asks the young man to wait and says that he is mistaken. The protagonist is sure that it is not the children who are to blame, but someone else. He continues to squeeze the man's hand so that he does not hurt the girls. The maid shields the children so that they remain safe. The protagonist says that there are different monsters. For example, there are some that appear from eggs. According to rumors, the eggs of the Viacilisks and Corollisks are very tasty, and they are also very expensive, and if you sell them, you can get a tidy sum for it. The main character said these words at one of the lectures. Then the girls' eyes lit up, and they decided to get this egg. Each of them wanted to find him. The main character then laughed and said that maybe someday it will happen. Such a story of very curious and very young children simply could not help but spark interest. The main character says that they did not know that stealing eggs is prohibited. He himself is to blame for this because he did not tell him about it. The young man admits that he is entirely to blame for the attack. The man wanted to object. The main character's friend begins to stagger and falls to the ground from exhaustion. The young man bows down before everyone and asks for forgiveness. He says that all responsibility for his omission lies solely with me. He asks not to scold anyone. The children turn to their teacher. The man thinks and admits that he is also guilty. How could he even think of attacking a small child? The child tremblingly approaches the protagonist and asks for forgiveness once again. The protagonist strokes his head and asks if he will give him an egg. The main character says that everything is fine, he can leave the rest to him. The child hands the egg to the young man. The man asks what the protagonist is going to do with it. Kraft says that they will see everything now. He asks what they are doing. It's time to start preparing. He turns to his assistant. She says that they need to prepare the 6th and 9th potions. The protagonist replies that it's great and they can start. He puts an egg inside the barrel and uses some magic spells. With this egg he can do the impossible. The whole room is illuminated by bright rays emanating from the egg. The main character tries to contain the magic. Finally, he exclaims with delight that he has done what he wanted. The protagonist says that the cockatrice panacea is ready. The man is surprised and asks again what panacea he is talking about. The protagonist calls on everyone to listen to him carefully. He says that this is a special incredible potion, when reflected from which all the effects that can only be received from opponents are healed. Breathing will now be nothing to people, and those who have already petrified will return to their previous form. Everyone present looks at the main character, their mouths open in admiration. The man grabs the young man's hand and squeezes it with all his might. He asks if they don't have to be afraid of breathing anymore. His eyes fill with tears. The man doesn't believe that they can save everyone who has already been petrified. The protagonist says that you really do, and they need to spread this potion as soon as possible. Men happily agree to this. Now we don't have to worry about the effects of the cockatrices. But the threat from a whole herd of them hasn't gone away yet. If only they were here. The action moves to the strongest group of the Golden Dawn. If Redux group was here, they could easily change the situation. The main character swears, and says that the most important thing now is to know how to contact this group. The girl says she thinks she knows where the man's group might be. The young man looks at her in surprise. He grabs the heroine by the shoulders and asks if it is true. The girl says yes. The young man asks where they are. He asks her to tell him. The girl says that on the day they did not find the egg downriver near the forest, they saw a camp. The protagonist says he understands. It was a rest stop before the monster hunt. Taking rest and preparation breaks. A common practice for adventurers. The protagonist studies the map carefully and decides that they must be somewhere nearby. He commands his friends to come with him to the guild right now. The protagonist points to a place on the map and says that this area should still be a priority, in his opinion. The Celts are all bustling about and running around with documents. The cat girl looks at the map and is surprised. She asks the protagonist what happened. The young man replies that he will tell her now, but first he needs to gather everyone. The protagonist greets Kyle. He asks them how the situation is. The protagonist says that all the panacea potions have already been distributed and the formation has been restored. However, there is one snag. The healing potion is almost gone. The protagonist is surprised, saying that he made so many of them. He apologizes, saying that there are no more ingredients for the potion left. Kyle says that they will definitely come up with something. The protagonist begins his story. He says he has a plan. How to change the situation. All the heroes look at him in surprise. The young man opens the map, says that the probability of finding Redox group in this area is extremely high. He points to a certain section of the map. The protagonist says that he wants to figure out a way to contact him. How does he ask if this information is true, that the men are there? The young man answers that it is. He points to the children and says that they shared the information with them. They saw their camp with their own eyes. The young man says that if it is not true there, then they will definitely have time to bring it before the evening, and also from the Redox side it is possible to carry out a surprise attack and strike from two sides. If they go right now, they might be able to catch them. The protagonist asks if there is a way to slip past the enemies without attracting attention. The interlocutor replies that he is afraid there is no way to get away from them unnoticed. Suddenly he comes up with something and tells everyone to wait in this place. He points to the map. It will be safe to pass. The protagonist is surprised and asks if he could really find a way. The young man replies that he could. He says that the hero can get through the sewer network. The protagonist is shocked, but looks at the sewer diagram. Exactly. The sewer system. If you get rid of the water, which is not difficult, then you can easily get out not far from the camp where the man and his squad are located. The young man says that if you go through the sewer network, you can pass under the enemy unnoticed and meet with Redox squad. However, the structure of the sewer network is too complicated. If they do not find Lifon-san and ask her, they can get lost there. The protagonist turns to everyone and asks to urgently call the girl. The maid obeys his order. She runs out of the room. The protagonist thought about asking his foreign tourists, but this suits him too. The only thing that worries him is the heroine's speed. He worries that it will be dangerous to move so quickly around the city. The protagonist says that with Lifon-san they will definitely not get lost, so he and the girl should definitely try to get beyond the city limits. Suddenly, one of the children asks the young man to take him with him. The protagonist is surprised and looks down. Ito looks at him with his big tear-stained eyes, and begs him with all his appearance to take him with him. The main character rushes up the stairs. A young man carefully holds two people so that they do not fall off their horse. The girl turns to the main character and says that there will be a street up the stairs. The young man replies that he understands her. He urges his horse on. The child wants to tell him something, but the man asks him to keep quiet so that he does not bite his tongue. In the meantime, he can rely on him. He says that the child can help him. The protagonist asks if it is true that the child will show him how to reach their allies. The child smiles. He says that, of course, he will definitely show it. The hour has come for the heroes to return with reinforcements. At the same time, somewhere in the forest, a monster hunt is taking place. A man shoots a huge monster and says that its screams can interfere with their mission. He cuts off his head and asks him to leave this life quietly. A beautiful warrior jumps off it. With the help of a special magical tool, the hero seal the monster's severed body. They lift it somewhere into the sky. The young man lets the mask down a little, asks one of his colleagues if they're done here. The girl, he says she'll climb higher and check just in case. The other two people lower the monster down, doing it as carefully as possible. Fighting silently with monsters is not so easy, but thanks to this, they do not meet a single cockatrice. Today they have 3 tasks: collecting ingredients for a potion, eliminating monsters whose activity threatens the city, and reconnaissance of the cockatrice's advancement. Since they tried to fight in a way that would not attract the attention of the enemy, they ended up not meeting any. Because of this, they were unable to gather enough information. The team leader thinks that they can go a little deeper into the forest. The scout says she's not exactly sure, but it seems like a large group of cockatrices are heading in one direction. The boy asks if they're not heading to the city. The girl replies no. She says they are going in a different direction from the city. During the stampede, they were supposed to go straight to the city to attack it. Is there anything more attractive than the city? The man says that in this case, their route changes, and the heroes follow their opponents. The only reliable information. There is a possibility that they will not be able to protect the city. Perhaps, having got ahead of the opponents, they will be able to understand the situation a little better. What will happen next, no one knows. However, there is a high probability of a surprise attack. Hero, they agree that if their leader says so, then they must follow his orders. Let them be sorry to leave this place. The young man says that he knew that they would agree. The man thanks them for their understanding. Meanwhile, many traces of monsters can be seen in the forest. The hero attacks these very huge tracks. They notice that many opponents have passed here. The hero asks each other where they are heading and what is happening. The situation is still unclear. The man is worried about something. These tracks say little about the fact that this was a panic flight. If it were, the tracks should have been more scattered, but they are coordinated. They were already in normal condition while they were walking. His partner is surprised by this statement. He asks if their condition had already returned to normal when they were passing here. The hero points his hand to the side and says that it is already close. It seems to him that just a little bit more, and they will find the reason for the true madness of the cockatrices. The girl asks why everyone was scared at such a moment. She reminds them that investigating the reason for such behavior of the opponents is precisely on their list of tasks. She says that they need to hurry. Suddenly the girl freezes. All the heroes look at one point and do not understand what is happening. A huge, strangely shaped tree stretched out before them. The hero stops and tilts his head up to get a better look at this phenomenon. The leader of the squad breaks out in a sweat. He asks if this is really the same tree. One of the expedition members says that he once heard from his teacher that there are plants that drive animals mad. However, he unfortunately does not have any details. Suddenly, a huge monster appears from behind the forest. The heroes cover themselves with masks in horror, so as not to accidentally fall under his breath. A huge cockatrice rushes at full speed straight to the mysterious tree. The leader of the squad watches this action carefully. Approaching the plant, he falls to the ground and begins to roll on it. The hero watches what is happening and does not understand what he is doing. The monster is scratching the roots of the tree. The leader of the squad watches the events closely, terrified. He will see such a phenomenon for the first time. The monsters begin to rise in front of him. The eyes of the huge bird bulge out of their sockets, and an incomprehensible liquid begins to flow from its mouth. Eventually, the bird falls to the ground, its eyes spinning all over their sockets. The bird continues to thrash about, foam pouring out of its mouth. The heroes stand and do not move, afraid to scare this strange creature. One of those present says that Bardak was right after all. Everything is happening as he said. The heroes realize that the real reason for the monster's panicked flight is the tree. The heroes continue to stand and look up. The leader is the first to come out of his stupor. He says that they need to examine these plants first. He instructs his assistants to examine the area. The girl bends down to the ground and sees shiny objects in the grass. She carefully takes one of them and holds it up to the sun. The heroes realize that it is a dragon scale. The young man looks at everything carefully and then says that now he understands how everything really was. One of the fellow soldiers turns to the captain and urges him to look closely at the roots. And indeed, there is something in the tree roots. You can see the imprint of claws on them. Judging by the size, these are clearly the claws of a large dragon. The man says that the tree must have been food for the dragon they destroyed. Everyone else exclaims in horror that this cannot be. The young man says that this is true. By destroying the dragon, in other words, they made the area with the tree safe for other inhabitants of the forest. Because of this, they began to suffer en masse from the madness that this tree induces. One of the young men says that they changed the ecosystem of the tree zone. Their teammates say that they didn't kill the dragon to make things worse. The machine replies that it's not exactly known, but for now, this is the best explanation for the panicked flight. In any case, this tree is dangerous. It must be burned as soon as possible. The hero agrees with him. The squad lights the tree and watches it burn slowly. They realize that this tree won't burn down so easily. The young man says that they need to try a little harder. They must burn it before all the enemies return to this place. Suddenly, the girl notices something. She feels something coming. The heroine says it's something big. The man assumes you're a monster. He wriggles out and says they need more time. He orders his comrades to continue burning the tree, and he himself runs to stop the monster. He understands that he cannot allow the panicked flight to continue. He stands in front of the huge monster and shouts that he will not pass. Suddenly, the hero sees several people getting off him. The protagonist praises the black dragon and says that he has done a great job. The leader of the squad looks at the young man in surprise and asks if it is really him. The young man says that they have finally found him. The baby jumps on the man to hug him. The leader of the squad is amazed by their sudden appearance. The protagonist says that they did not find the camp where the detachment last saw food, so they went to the smoke. He is very happy because he thought that he could not cope even with this. The protagonist praises and tells the child that he tried hard. The heroes do not have time to talk, so the young man promises to tell everything along the way. He asks the warriors to name their comrades. But the man only thought that the trouble would go away with the tree. But the stampede is still there. It's only getting worse. Vaughn says he heard it would take weeks to make enough potions to counteract the nuts. He asks how it's going. The protagonist says he's found a solution. Now there's something he'll have to ask his friends for. He says that he needs their help to deal with the raging opponents. He says that, of course, this request is connected with the risk of death, and the heroes have the right to refuse, however. The young man interrupts the protagonist. He asks the young man how well and how long he thinks they have known each other. The protagonist ponders. The warriors answer that he is a little late for the slaughter, so he will treat his opponents to the full. The young man is incredibly grateful to his friend. The knight was surprised that the child knew where their camp was. Not that they hid him, but he was quite close to the city. The protagonist says that everything happened because of his mistake. If they had such strength as they did at that age, they would definitely go on adventures too. The brave rider says that in this case they also have a responsibility. They got carried away and trained them too much. The girl from the team agrees, but says that they should have taught them not only strength, but also responsibility. Although adventurers are in charge of their own lives, they are still children. Now, the protagonist understands why Kyle insisted on the importance of education in upbringing. And it is not an easy thing to raise children. He asks why everyone is so downhearted. The girl next to the protagonist shouts that they are going to throw out the opponents. She demands that everyone rise in spirit. She screams that she will no longer allow them to do whatever they want with her house. She will show them who is the boss in their city. The knight laughs and says that these are the right words for the head of the guild. The protagonist turns to the child and asks him not to worry. He promises that they will definitely protect the city. He asks if he is still upset. The girl told him not to lose heart. The young man jokes that perhaps the child is simply afraid of the enemy. Here he immediately starts screaming and denying. He says that he is not afraid of anyone. The main character says that this is a different matter and suggests returning home in this mood. The comrades head home in fighting spirit. And now their finest hour has come. The hero rushes towards the house at high speed. The young man asks Ito to keep his head down and hold on tight. They agree to act according to the plan. The main character rushes at the head of everyone and with a war cry, calling everyone to attack. He stretches out his hand, from which light emanates. You have one weakness in your opponents. The knights have learned about it thanks to their extensive experience in reconnaissance, but it only works under the cover of night. It suits their plan. This weakness is light. Thanks to the harsh light at night, they will be able to disorient them, and for a long time, they agree that the protagonist will be able to pull it off. It's time for an unspoken plan. He must direct the light directly at his opponents. The hero does this thanks to the skill of the power of the sun. The monsters freeze and look up. Where is the light coming from? The knight praises the main character, saying that he did a great job. They managed to disorient the enemy after all. Now the monsters have turned into ordinary chickens, and this is their chance. The friends rush to attack. The main character increases his speed and increases heat resistance. He deals one hit. With a battle cry, he rushes into battle. The hero combines a mighty blow, a hurricane storm, and a mountain trimmer. By striking a blow with their combined forces, they hope to defeat the enemy. The main character rushes to attack the remaining opponents. He inflicts gifts on him while blinding him with light projectiles. The battle looks grandiose from the outside. The knight shouts that they have broken through their formation, and that its center must be somewhere around here. He commands everyone to create space for craft. The young man turns to the protagonist and signals that he needs to act right now. No Poppy should waste all of his magic power in battle, because without it he would be completely defenseless. But right now, the hero is about to use magic that will require all of his magic power. No potions can restore his strength, only time. But he doesn't mind being completely defenseless on this battlefield because he has very strong comrades. Thanks to them, he can use magic without fear. The hero encourages the young man. The main character uses the technique of fiery hell, the gust of inferno. Everything around is engulfed in flames. The flames consume all the opponents, burning them to ashes. The heroes look at everything that is happening in amazement. They could not even imagine that the main character possesses such power. The young man grins and falls down exhausted. His friends catch him and praise him for his excellent work. The young man gave it his all in the battle. The heroes understand this and decide not to bother the main character anymore. He has used up all his energy. The warriors ask if it was his magic. They ask the protagonist to rest and promise that they will finish off the rest of the enemies themselves. The knight asks the protagonist to leave them some feats. The protagonist gives him a fist as a sign of friendship and thanks him for his help. The warriors attack the remnants of the enemy in a friendly horde. One of the main character's comrades holds him back and says that since he cannot defend himself now, he will be next to him. The young man asks if it would be better if he went and helped the others. He asks if he has forgotten who is next to him. The main character smiles and says that he really forgot. Warriors fight with joy. They encourage each other and tease their opponents. They ask, did the enemy really think they could do anything against them? They're having rotisserie chicken for dinner tonight. They list what and how exactly they can prepare from the catch. Ordinary warriors also join the battle. They understand that their shell-shocked opponents pose no threat to them. They have even defeated dragons before. Thus the Golden Dawn was saved by common efforts. All the enemies were exterminated to the last man, and the warriors who failed in battle were resurrected and unfrozen. The hero collects the corpses of the monsters into one big pile and buries them in the ground to burn the carcasses with a flammable potion prepared by the main hero. This must be done as quickly as possible before the rotting processes of the organisms have started. After this, a field of magical stones stretches out before the heroes. They decide not to burn the stones, but to keep them for themselves. The kid brings the main character empty vials of flammable potion. He fusses and talks loudly. The child tries in every way to make amends for his guilt before the talker, and to help the main character, who treated his mistake so nobly and understandingly. The girl stops him and makes a sign that he needs to be quiet. The child looks at her in surprise and then turns his gaze to the young man. The tired protagonist sleeps right in the middle of the room. Even he can get tired, so the girl offers the baby to let him rest. He did a great job. So, the plot of the fight against the opponents was closed.